This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. It's 4:30 already, and today is May the 25th, and so I'll call the meeting of the General Services Committee to order. And can I have a roll call, please?
Councillor Oropesa,
Here.
Councillor Moore, Councillor Halverson.
Yes.
Councillor Sanchez. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, just for the record, Mrs. Moore did contact me and indicated that she wasn't feeling good, so chances are she probably is not going to be. But we can check and see if she's online. Doesn't look like it. So with that in mind, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move we approve the agenda, and let me do the minutes at the same time.
Sure.
In the minutes from the last meeting.
Minutes of April 27th.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. And we'll go to the first action item. Consider direction of Virginia Chisholm Park project. Who is going to pick up that one?
Mr. Chairman, engineering, we're doing that. I'm Los Naha, the city engineer. Jim Sexy, our designer, will be going to the presentation. We did make this presentation, and we do have a preliminary recommendation from infrastructure. So what we're going to do, we're going to present it to you all. And then, just like we did with them, and then after you guys are making input and recommendations, then we'll share with you what infrastructure came up with. That way you're not influenced. You just get to hear the whole presentation. Will that work for you, Mr. Chairman? Okay, Jim Sexy.
Hey, Chisholm School, elementary school, used to be in this location. The school was closed down in 2005 and torn down in 2007. The city acquired the property. I said approximately 2013. That could be wrong according to Councilor Plaster. That date really don't matter, but the city did acquire the property. In 2021, the state legislation gave us $400,000 basically to plan, construct, purchase, and equip a park on South Virginia. Next slide. In August 24th of 2021, we actually had a public input meeting at the site of the park. We put these flyers out to that whole neighborhood, invited them to come. We had Cokes and snacks and refreshments for everybody. Councilor Foster was there, former mayor was there, former city councilor Stubbs was there. We had Grace Frescus with the Roswell PD on behalf of Neighborhood Watch and all that. They gave us their input of what they wanted in this park because they're the ones that are going to be involved in using it. It's a neighborhood park. Next slide. This is basically what everybody kind of wanted at the park. There's an existing pine tree. They wanted to keep that because it was part of the Chisholm School. They wanted a small parking area because they didn't want people parking in front of their driveways and blocking their driveway access. They wanted a recreation trail around the park. The playground equipment, they wanted it to be similar to what is at Linda Vista Park. And they wanted a basketball court, picnic table, barbecue grill, covered shelter, some park benches and trash receptacles. They wanted some lighting because they're worried about mischievous things at nighttime. It's pretty dark over there. They wanted an area to practice soccer and baseball and grass surfacing, and then handicap accessibility was also a very important item to them. In October 21st, the City Parks Department ordered the new playground equipment that is the same as Linda Vista and as Carpenter Park. And they have it stockpiled, ready to place. And that was taken out of the $400,000. So the remainder leaves $340,842.44. The engineering department was designated to design and put together a set of plans for the new park. And we used the public input meeting to design the park, basically. This is the picture of the playground equipment. It's going to be arranged a little different, but this is the slide and all that, the swings. There is a swing back here for a mother and infant. They really like that idea. That's at Linda Vista and Carpenter. This is like a little swing that people can sit on and do that, but that's a picture of the park equipment. This is what Game Time sent us. The layout is a little different on my design. It's the same equipment. It's just laid out a little different on the plans, which we did a circle instead of the square and everything. It's the same equipment though. And that's basically the layout of the playground equipment. This is basically the design we came up with. There's Virginia, Onyx, and Keith. This is an alley. This is a recreation trail around the outside. We have kind of a retention area for the water and stuff. And this is zero-scape area with bushes and shrubs and bushes and some rocks. Here's a half-court basketball court. Playground equipment is going to go there. There's a place for a picnic table, a shelter, barbecue grill. There's 3 park benches. There's some solar lighting around the perimeter. There is existing sidewalk along here on both sides. These areas here are the new handicapped ramps that we put in. We did supply a little bit of parking area. The old school had 2 cutouts here, and that used to be their parking area. We're just utilizing what was already cut in the curb there. But that's basically the layout. All the green area is the grass area, which we don't know what's in there, so we're requiring them to go to finished grade, remove 8 inches of soil, bring 8 inches of new topsoil in, so we got good soil for the grass area. So the next slide, the engineer's estimate for this project is $810,308, what you saw on the bill on the last slide, but that does not include the installation of the playground equipment, and it also does not include any park benches, picnic table, barbecue grill, trash receptacles, covered shelter, or the basketball goal, rim, and backboard. We're providing the concrete in the estimate for it, but we did not include this. And we were thinking maybe we could get some donations and stuff for that, is what our thought was. We're just trying to build the structure itself, the infrastructure for it. In the following slides, I'm just going to go through real quick. It is my plans that I designed that go out to bid, that we could send out to bid for a bidder. That's the cover sheet with all the sheets. That's all the general notes. That's the grading plan. And the green area is what needs to be excavated down 8 inches. This is just the cross section that we came up with the quantities. That's the same plan that you saw earlier. It's just a construction plan. The next slide is the same thing. It just shows all the GIS points around for the contractor to lay it out when he builds it. This is just all the details of the wheelchair ramps and all the stuff that the contractor will need to have to build this project. This is the irrigation system. All the different colors are all the different zones on the irrigation. It basically waters everything that's going to be the grass area. There's a 4-inch water line all the way around the perimeter. All the sprinkler valves come off of that. There's a 2-inch water line here on both ends, and that would water all the trees and shrubs throughout the whole project. The automatic control is right here. We have to have power for it, so it requires a meter pole, conduit, service panel. Here's where we're tying into the water system, and there will have to be a backflow preventer. And after the meter is installed, the contractor is responsible for the rest of that. It's a lump sum bid, but it irrigates everything in there, and that's all the zones. The next slide shows the same thing, just not all the different colors, so it's easier to see. You can see all the sprinkler heads and all that. And then the following slides, this is the tree and shrub plan layout, and it shows all the different trees and shrubs that we have in there and how to plant them. And then this is the details for the service panel and the controller for the irrigation. And then this is the sprinkler system details, all the decoders for all the valves. And then this is what requires a backflow preventer. This is just detail of the backflow preventer and the hot box to keep it insulated in the wintertime. Basically, this is the summary of it. And we designed the park from the public input. And again, that's where we're going to remove the 8 inches and put new 8 inches of topsoil. The plan includes all the concrete sidewalk, the recreation trail, the asphalt parking area. It also includes trees, shrubs, the drip system for all the trees and shrubs, including the existing pine tree. I've got a drip system there, half-court basketball slab, and handicapped wheelchair ramps are all included in the estimate. And this is basically the legislative grant was for $400,000. Purchase of the playground was $59,157. That leaves a remaining fund of $340,000. The time frame for the grant money is June 30th, 2025. The engineer's estimate for the park is $810,308 with gross receipts. That means there is a shortfall of $469,465.56. And again, this does not include any of this equipment here. That's basically my presentation. If you have any questions.
Committee members,
I do. The difference, if we were to give you the difference, would it cover all that stuff that was included?
No, all of this right here, estimated about $61,000. There is possible ways of going about it. Jim Burris can probably touch on that a little bit.
Well, we try to get the picnic shelter, grill, trash can, all that kind of stuff as a group installed. I think it's around 50-some grand. And then I think we'll have enough wood chips right now to install the playground, 17,000 to install the playground. So we're close. I mean, maybe we can look at some other things, but we put in backstops and soccer goals and things like that pretty much all the time. We ask the coaches where they want them, and that's where we go put the backstops. But you know, that.
Councilor, the other thing we were looking at for the benches and the amenities was to get sponsors, the clubs around here, the civic clubs that do that. We do plaques for them as well.
So are we looking at putting a slab for the basketball goal, but no basketball goal under the?
Yes, that's correct.
We hope to have the basketball goals we can send.
The reason I put the concrete in there is so we can put the irrigation around everything.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
I forgot to tell people to make sure that they sign in. If there's a sign in going around, make sure that everybody signs in.
Can we back up on the slides now?
Counselor Moore has just arrived.
Councilor Moore, are you there?
And Councilor Moore did watch this presentation yesterday.
Yes, I did see this presentation yesterday.
Can we go back out to the one of the first one with the photo layout?
What time is it that she joined?
44. 40. We win.
Sorry, I couldn't get logged in.
One
Sorry.
more.
2 more. 3 more. Shows
These line.
that one.
Down right there. Okay, so what infrastructure requested was come up with another option, what we call bare bones. So the idea was to be build everything. You have to go there and grade it. So all the drainage is there. So you do all the dirt work. Go ahead and put the irrigation system in, the playground, but then you would not build the trail. You would not build the basketball court. You would not put the trees or the shrubs or anything else like that. So we trim it back, and that's $545,000. Just with the dirt work and irrigation. You'd still have to have access to the park area, but that would be a trimmed down version. And that's what infrastructure recommended at $545,000, which would be about $205,000 shortfall.
That extra money comes from that COVID emergency funds or whatever.
I couldn't answer that.
Anybody?
And again, the idea that one recommendation, the shortfall of 205,000.
Yeah, and we were recommending the use of the American Rescue Plan money that we
For
had,
the extra 145,000 or the extra?
the extra 205.
Yeah, we just
Okay.
discussed the 545.
Yeah, and to put in all the foundational pieces so that then we can go out and seek the sponsors. So we did the foundational pieces, and then hopefully we can get some people out of the public that will help us finish the park off.
Councilor Moore. Can you hear him? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can barely hear you.
And let me see if I can turn my mic up.
Okay, there you go. Councilor Moore, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I saw this on yesterday. I don't know if you can hear me, but I voiced my opinion about the slimmed down version. If we're going to, like I said, I just don't want it, leave it half done like we do so many other projects. If we're going to do it, it needs to be done decent and in order. I did understand that in this slimmed down version, there was no slab even put down, right? Am I correct with that part?
That is correct.
There was no basketball slab?
No concrete basketball
Nope.
and no trail.
And I remember the no trail, but I thought the concrete was still going to be there for some.
That's correct, Councilor Moore. No basketball court either.
We have the playground pieces.
The playground pieces and an irrigation system.
And the parking lot?
Yeah.
You were utilizing the one that was.
And the parking
The
lot, but
parking
not
lot, we might make it gravel and just put the handicap concrete slots.
things around it, yeah.
Just trim
And it
it
still
down.
had to be graded. Yeah, slimming down.
Yes.
Okay, I get that part.
All
And
the
then
dirt-
did y'all add the 17,000 for putting down this is expensive, not even putting down the playground equipment. So did y'all add that 17,000 to whatever number we're looking for?
No, we figured we would use other cash for that. That's already in the budget.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Does anybody in the public have any comments?
Councilor Orpesa?
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Oh,
Mr.
Councilor Perry.
Yes, this is Councilor Perry. Thank you. Yes, we heard pretty much the same presentation yesterday that were brought up that haven't been brought up today to consider. There's so many things that there's potential partnerships available for, potentially partnerships for with and the city with the ability with trees. Jim explained a lot of that. That will help with some of the cost and incurred, and also the fact that there is already sidewalk on 3 sides of this. I know it's not a walk path, but it's a sidewalk that gives the ability for some walking. We want to be able to get everything done, but this would not be the first time that we have not put everything into the park that we had planned to. The park, which is now the Altrusa Park, with the original plans was going to be, we were going to be keeping an entire gymnasium there. When they tore down the school, the original plan when Mayor Journey was the mayor was to keep that entire facility, the gymnasium and the bathrooms were going to be saved. And then there was a secondary thought of the gym, keeping the bathrooms. Anyway, long story short, this won't be the first time that we've shifted from what we would love to have out there. in order to find something within a budget that we can maintain and move forward with. And of course, we do have the abilities, just like Altrusa, just like with, I'll give you an example. The Rotary Club just participated in a walking path from or a sidewalk, if you would say, from parking lot to the playground at the park over on Mescalero, on East Mescalero. They participated in other things. There are many of these civic clubs that have participated in such projects. There's plenty of area partnership if we can get the beautiful grass there, if we can get a place for these kids to play, if we can get the playground up and going. There's plenty of area for these other things to be able to come in other phases. So that we considered, and yesterday the infrastructure committee voted unanimously to send forth to city council for an adjustment of an extra $205,000 to get the park to a working standard, with the understanding that it would be built in such a way that the additions could be placed at another time.
Thank you, Councilor Perry. Councilor Best, do you have anything to add?
No, sir, thank you.
I guess that leaves me. My thoughts are, I would like to see this park done, period, from start to finish. I'm not a proponent of phased in projects. And the reason that I say that is because it has been, unfortunately, in my opinion, we have a bad reputation of starting projects and taking it as far as the money will take you. Even with the $205,000, you're still looking at pretty much a bare bone type of project. So with that said, I believe since we don't have to spend this money till 2025, or we have up to 2025 to spend the money, I would hope that we would be able to work with our legislative team to try and get additional money for this project and go in and from start to finish, complete the whole thing, turnkey, walk away with it and be done with it instead of trying to determine where the money is going to come from. And so, my recommendation would be to put this one on hold until this next legislative session and see if indeed we can get some additional money and then work with our next budget and see how much money we have to come up with at that time.
Brother Chair.
I don't feel comfortable with starting this project because we have had so many projects that we started. And even when we try to work with the community, some of our businesses, they get hit pretty hard. We listen to, what was that organization at the Wood Bowl, what's it called, the stadium from Nimi?
Yeah, that's the woo.
The amphitheater?
The amphitheater. I remember we talked to some organization, they were supposed to be working with us and they were going to take it on, and all of a sudden, nothing happened.
They didn't raise enough money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing happened.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with the swimming people. And the reason that we made the pool the size that it was is because they were the ones that were really interested in it. And all of a sudden, as far as I understand, they have to use the pool.
The swim team.
The swim team, the Capra. Right. And same thing happened with the WUBO, the softball.
Field number 5 was never built.
Field number 5 was never built. The cover was never done until Councilor Sanchez really pushed that one. And then it got done. And that's the concern that I have. That you start a project and it's good. I mean, it's a good project. I'm not saying that it's not a good project. But the problem is that you only go as far as the money will take you, and then with the idea that you're going to come back and finish it. And for whatever reason, sometimes we just don't seem to be able to get the money to be able to finish it, and so it stays there. The other one is the Yucca Center. I don't know how many forums we have for the Yucca Center. 3 or 4 that I can remember for the public to see what they were interested in doing and so forth and so on. And still to date, there is nothing being done. And so that's the concern that I have. And so, Councilor Perry, did you have something to say?
No, sir. No, sir. Not at all. I apologize. And it's sort of hard from online to know when to request. So I was just stating that the amphitheater was the NIMI, but of course we of course would have loved to have seen that project fulfilled. I think the only thing that I would say, Mr. Chairman, is I first one because I know you're passionate about this, and I believe you say that you'd like to see this fully funded with the legislators. I would be I would. Moving forward, these folks have been waiting for a long time to have something. When we first started discussing this, and it came forth from Councilor Foster, and I don't know if he's there or not. He could certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember the original plan was there to be green space and a playground, and that evolved more and more as we went. But because we'd love to give our community just a splash pad in every park, but it's, those kind of things that's not possible. But I would like to, I think these folks have waited long enough. Councilor Foster certainly been working on this for a long time, but Mr. Chairman, I would be more than honored to go with you to the legislators, because I assure you, after going to the Legislative Committee meeting that was just held at the David Center there at New Mexico Military Institute, there's going to be a significant amount of money available for such projects at this next session. And I'd be more than glad to go with you and or council or whoever, try to get this money for something like this to finalize more stuff in it.
Chair?
Go ahead, Councilor Moore.
Mr. Chair, then I kind of feel the same way. I don't think us not starting it doesn't stop us from still asking money to complete it. I mean, I feel like starting it, I think there's more opportunity for us to get money if we go ahead and get started and say, oh, this is our plan and this is where we are, than to not start it at all. And they look, we are. So I do feel like it came in quite a bit over budget of what our initial thought was, but I still think we should go ahead and get it started, and we can still ask for money whether it's started or not. And you said the same thing that I said in the meeting yesterday. We're so known for starting stuff and doing stuff and not going back and completed it. But and that was my point about saying let's wait, not waiting on the money. But I still would prefer that we went ahead and started, and then we could still ask for money when the legislation comes back up, because all the groundwork will be there to go ahead and add, the trailway, and because I think the trailway would be an amazing add to that. But I think we could go ahead and, I think we should go ahead and move this on, the council, and let them go ahead and start it. That I yield.
Okay. Well, Councilor Moore, I kind of agree with you. But again, there's no guarantee that you will be able to secure that kind of money from the next legislative session.
If I may.
Sure.
I agree with you. I hate doing things in phases because they don't always get finished. But that's what we're here for. We're there to make sure that we keep going after this to get the funding, because this community does need the park, I think. And I agree, we should start it now and then just build under it later, because it's upon us to try to go get the additional funding with the legislature. Because I hate for them not to have it, because what happens if we don't get the additional funding, then they still don't have anything at all. You know, at least they'll have something to start with.
See, and again, I kind of agree with you and I disagree because of the
Well, I know you're
experience
coming-
that we've had with the city. And I know that this is a new council and perhaps it'll be different. I don't know. But my experience has been that hasn't worked.
Yeah.
We haven't pushed hard enough to be able to get the extra money that we need for certain projects. And that's the only thing that I have. But I'm not going to stand in the way of trying to get this project done. My suggestion again would be to delay it for at least 1 year and see what kind of money we get. That way we know exactly how much money we need to spend at the next budget. But if that's the will of the council, so be it.
I think if we just take it on ourselves to make sure it gets funded, you know, or do our best. We can't guarantee it, but we can do our best.
Right.
Any other?
And
any
I
other
think we
comments?
have somebody also, sorry, and I think we have somebody to push. You said there's somebody to push, but I guarantee you that your council Foster is not going to stop pushing. So we can continue. I just think it's a good thing to go ahead and show a side of faith, you know, for the community over there, and for them to see something happen. I think it's something that we should give them.
Well, the New Mexico Legislative Finance Committee, we went to that dinner and there's a guy, I think his name was David. He said, there's all kinds of money up there. We just need someone to find it. Mr. Abbey, yeah. So there's money. He said there's tons of money up there that the federal government is willing to give out in the state. So we just need to find someone that knows how to find that money. That's the trick.
So, Mr. Chairman, your committee can either make no recommendation, because we already have a recommendation going to council, or you can have a separate recommendation on my abstract to council. I would put both of them in the abstract. And of course, the 10 have to vote on it.
Well, it really doesn't matter what recommendation we make because it's going to council anyway. So it really doesn't matter. So if there's no further discussion, you want to go ahead and make a recommendation?
Yeah, I make a recommendation. We go with what the infrastructure said, but maybe include some kind of, see what the cost for structures for shade would cost, additional.
So here's what engineering is going to do. We'll have a drawing, a simple layout like that showing full project. We'll come up with another drawing showing our scaled back version.
Does the scaled back version include shade structures?
No, but we'll have it all itemized. And then between now and then, Jimmy and I might have a beer or two and see if we can come up with another idea to present. And try to, because what we're doing, both Jimmy and I are listening. What infrastructure said, what you all said, and we're always brainstorming, understanding that the number that we're looking at now is 545.
For the bare bones.
For the option for using the park.
Okay.
If we can come up with better ideas, might not look as pretty, but if we come up with better ideas, we'll present them at council.
So my motion is to go with what infrastructure said, but then look at the additional costs, amend it to include some kind of shade structures too.
Okay, so we have a motion. You want to second it?
Angela said.
Oh, Angela, I'm sorry. Councilor Moore seconded. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
And we have 3 ayes and 1 no. So
Yeah.
motion passed.
Yeah. To come back to, no. Yeah, no.
So you're not in agreement with starting it?
Yeah.
Just make sure that we understand
Yes.
that is still going to go before council regardless of what the action is here.
I, oh, no, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
your vote is recorded. And so we'll go on to the next item. Consideration and approval of the Commission on Aging flyer. I really don't understand it, but I guess we're gonna get it explained what this is all about. Who's gonna take this one?
I got it.
I have some
So,
questions and on this too, if y'all need.
Okay.
okay, so my name's Alex. I'm the rec manager of the city, and I serve on the Commission of Aging as the staff liaison. Don't worry, I'll let you know what the flyer is and what we're doing. So a little bit of background. So the Commission on Aging is an advisory commission for the city. So at the last meeting, the commission decided to advise, which is why I'm here, to advise that the Public Affairs Department create a senior tips flyer that could be distributed in the community. So if we go to the next slide, I'll let you know what exactly this means and what it entails. So essentially, for a period of time, so I use monthly in this presentation. So monthly, we would have a specific topic that concerns seniors. So for example, March is colonoscopy awareness month. So the topic for March may be colonoscopy awareness. And then this flyer would include tips and resources that would help the senior population. This could be an insert that would be included on Meals on Wheels that gets distributed through the Joy Center, local businesses, and anywhere else it can end up. So where the commission is estimating about 1,300 flyers for a mix. Now, what it would look like, and this is an example that was presented by Chairman Wakefield for the commission. So essentially, it would be something simple, something that could be a quarter size, an eighth size, but something simple that is, again, an insert on those Meals on Wheels, gets distributed, that includes tips. We would essentially be taking information that's already out there. So if we go to the next slide, the links that were provided have some websites. So we'll be taking information that exists and creating it into some sort of flyer, operating under the assumption that seniors don't use the internet or cannot or don't want to. So this would be a way to provide those helpful tips and that information for the senior population that does not use the internet. So in terms of what it would cost and some financial considerations. So the financial considerations here are again based off of a monthly analysis and based off of a quarter sheet piece of paper. So it costs staff time, our public affairs department's time, and the cost of print. So using 80 cents per full page, that would be about 3,900 full pages a year. We're doing this monthly at quarter size. It brings the annual cost to about 3,100, 3,120. So that's what it would cost the city in addition to time to create it. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Questions from committee members?
Angela has one.
I am on the phone with Miss Wakefield, the one that this is her baby or whatever, and she's been trying to do this for about 6 or 8 months. She's a really advocate for the seniors, and it was her. She had already designed the flyer and was going to do it with this, that, other, but was told that she was unable to. And I'm saying this for you, Councilor Presser, because you didn't understand why we're here. She tried to go just doing marketing and do it that way, just to not expensive. It doesn't have to be that expensive. Just to give them something in their senior meals and stuff. Some information that they don't usually have access. A lot of people ask for questions about certain stuff as she's in and out about the community and doing stuff for this. So she wanted to put this together so they could have information at their hand. We do know some of them get online, so I'm sure it'll be on some of the Joy Centers or some of their websites. But I think it's going to go through the Joy Centers, through the Joy Center mills, because they have the people that are going to place the flyers where they need to go, because they're the one that delivers the meals to the seniors. And so that's just kind of where she was going with that. They've asked her, they kept telling her, telling Miss Wakefield that it couldn't be done. And so she just wants something to give to them in their hand, in their meals, and help and reach out and give them information. I'm guessing that they're going to, I don't know, if the commission is going to sign the flyer every month to give the information that's there.
Finished? Councilor Moore,
Yes.
are you finished? Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm finished. She wanted to say something, so she was trying to get logged in for this part of it. She was trying to, but Miss Wakefield, the president of the commission, was trying to say something, but y'all couldn't hear her through she's just on my phone. So she's trying to log in so she could have a comment or.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see if she,
Yeah,
she
y'all
calls
can
in.
keep talking about this because we still have to vote and stuff. Find her the 9-digit code while y'all talk a little bit.
Okay,
Chair, there are 2 commissioners here as well.
okay. And you want to address it? If you would give us your name and telephone number, please,
Sure.
or address.
My name is Bonnie Montgomery. I'm a volunteer with the Commission on Aging. Been there quite a few years. I got burned out 3 years ago, but we're finding other. This is my fellow commissioner, Sandra East, and perhaps Ms. Wakefield can tune in. She's an attorney with CYFD, but it was her idea. She carefully researched this information. All of the boards and commissions have been hobbled because of COVID, but our senior community, especially, they've been very isolated. They can't always log in. They can always, it's hard to go to a Zoom meeting. That's difficult. But having written information, you can put my name and telephone number on there. I'm good at taking heat. They can call me. If I don't know the answer, I'll find out from one of you what's the answer and get back to them. It's important to listen to people and to say, I'm calling you back. I've got an answer. So for only, a little bit of paper and some printing, the same message, 4 messages, we, take it to a paper cutter. And Monica Duran is another commissioner. She said, oh, sure. Easy. We'll just tuck it in on Meals on Wheels. It's a way to let them know we're out there. We want to help them. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
So I had some questions.
Okay.
That's a full-size page. You guys are saying quarter-size page. What's quarter-size? Like a 4x6?
8.5 by 11.
Okay, so this size.
Right.
I'm not trying to be critical. I design for a living. This
Yes.
is almost very hard to read, with the colors and everything. I'm hoping you would get people that have, trouble seeing to read it before you send them out. Make it so they can see it.
Right. And I think the important thing is to not overdose it with words.
Yeah.
Just keep it.
No, and that's it, but like the green on the, I know this is a sample, so
Yeah.
I would,
But just be direct with not a whole lot of verbiage, but just to know, a lot of people don't know we're here. And we can be very effective, but they lost touch with us.
And did you get the quote for printing from a local printer?
We got it from our public affairs department.
Are we using local printers for that then? Or you just print them there in your office?
Either or, depends.
You print 3,900 each time or 3,900 total?
That 3,900 number would be for the full year at a quarter-size sheet.
Oh, when you say quarter size sheet,
Sorry, 4, so 8.5 by 11.
you're gonna cut it in 4?
We would cut it into 4, is how we came up with that estimate.
So it'd be, it would
Fold
be
it in 4.
that size.
Correct.
So yeah, you really can't, like you said, you can't have it text heavy.
Yeah. And it just, simple language, keep it direct with some contact numbers.
That's okay.
So what is the recommendation of
Wakefield is
staff?
online and available.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Wakefield is online and available. She's raising her hand.
Okay, Ms. Wakefield?
Yes, hi. I'm the Chair on the Commission on Aging. Thank you for your time. This has been long time coming. And the reason why is that there are so many of our seniors that do not have access to computers, laptops. When I first started as a commissioner, I actually tried to get a grant, and it was actually going to supply was $5 million, and it was going to be able to supply laptops or Chromebooks to seniors. However, because we did not have any type of a grant writer that worked for the city, I could not do it. We're purely advisory. That grant went away. So the next thing was where it wasn't just me, it was the commissioners as a whole. And I don't operate the commission in a silo. We're all very passionate. We actually in that age group, they call me a junior senior. Nonetheless, I'm a senior. With that being said, we knew that something needed to be put into the hands of our seniors. And there's so many tips, even if there was something that said colonoscopy month, which was last month. And there are, so the passion was, okay, let's create it. So I created the flyer, passed it by our other commissioners. Okay, fine. Went and got a litany of links where there's so much wonderful information. Of course, we wouldn't overload a senior, but it would be where we would highlight something where, okay, fine. Oh, I didn't know this. Oh, this is what I should do. I should have an advanced healthcare directive. Oh, remember to get your executor, review your will, or call a senior, whatever, call another senior. So we wanted to do something for the seniors. So what happened is that I met with Judy Stubbs, the last liaison, Mark Gallegos. There was an April Hunter. We were almost there. Then they disappeared. Don't know what happened to them. They just disappeared. So we started over. So I was told at the meeting with them, you cannot submit anything. No, you cannot submit a flyer. You cannot submit those links. However, I still had them. So when we were getting ready to go to the first general services meeting sometime last year, I was asked to produce the flyer as well as the links. And don't know what happened to April Hunter and the rest of them, they disappeared. This time I was told also, don't produce anything. Then I was circled back around to and said, could you produce something? So that's what we wanted. We didn't even want it where it had to be so much money. We didn't say that it had to be every month. We were even talking about a quarter. Just could we start it? You know, can we put something out there for our seniors? We have the racks at the farmers market, at the different places where they have all of those. Well, I get sent them, but these, what do they call them? These junk mail. Why can't we have something where our seniors can pick up and not even seniors, but caretakers, family members can learn something different. And so that was my thought regarding this. And also the commissioners and I, we're all volunteer. None of us, I have a full-time job. And today was so hectic that I went right past where you guys are and totally forgot about it because I'm still running and still doing some other stuff. We were thinking, listen, if we could just get them printed, somebody else said, okay, I'll give the ream of paper. If we could cut them into fourths, we didn't want them as small as fortune cookie sizes, but even if they were not even a fourth, but eighth of an inch, but it had whatever on there. That's all we wanted. We wanted to make sure that even the businesses would have them and they would be put into the grocery bags of the seniors, or maybe someone would see it and say, wow, I didn't know this. This is something I need to know. Even with our number on it. I get so many people that the city actually routes them to my personal phone number. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to do something. I don't want us, and none of us want to just be an idle commission holding seats. We want to be able to do something that's going to assist our seniors and our citizens. And so that's the breadth of that. If we did it every quarter, that price would be even cut down. So that's all we're asking. We're not asking to put send Roswell into debt. Everybody's dealing with the gas and the high cost of food and the like, and we understand that. But we also know that our seniors being isolated without getting any information, it's not good. Even if we had certain resource numbers, we just last month there's a number that the seniors can call there if they're non-filers. That would have been something that would have been interested, non-tax filers, that would have been something that they would have had information about. So that's all I'm asking for, and I would gracefully ask for the general services to really consider how we can do this, not how we cannot do this. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Wakefield, how many commissioners do you have on your organization?
We have Sandy, we have Bonnie, we have Monica Duran, myself, and then we have Bob McCray, 5. We are in need of others. We do have an application that is pending. We were unable to have a quorum. So the new lady that wants to apply, she has a litany of other seniors at different churches that want to get on board. And just one more thing, council persons, if you will. We said that we would distribute them. We didn't say we were going to put any extra burden on the city and we were going to have somebody from the city hall in the mirror. We said we would take, I live north. I said I would take my share, those that don't go into the meals. Monica Duran had already said, I said, well, we can come and volunteer. She said, it's an easy put in, Helen. It's not that hard. We can just stuff them in there with the home delivered meals and it's there. And we were talking about delivering them to the different businesses that are north, whatever. We would use our little senior gas to do it. We weren't asking for anybody else to go out of their way.
So let me ask Juanita, because apparently from what I hear is they're asking for the city to print the flyers, then deliver them to them, and they will deliver it wherever. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
No.
So do you have the staff to be able to do this?
We do.
You do have the staff.
But we have staff members that are qualified to do this kind of stuff. Not to provide advice on how to, we would feel uncomfortable giving information to, this is what you should do to get a colonoscopy, because then I think that puts the city at risk. But I do think that we could provide information and tips for seniors to get information from a credentialed doctor or this office or that office. I think we would feel comfortable doing that. We don't have a current print budget for this. It would be about 325 pieces a month. So that's not a whole lot. I mean, it's something that we can do just based on the number of full-size sheets. But
so what would be your recommendation?
I think some of the questions we did ask, I asked Alex, what are they looking for? Just because we needed a sense of understanding to meet their needs. I think some of the links and stuff is great, but I think if they're looking for more involvement on the commission or what the commission can do for them, I think perhaps a piece about the commission and what their resources and capabilities are. And really what's the focus and the goal of putting something like this out there for seniors.
Mrs. Wakefield, I hear you want to try to talk to us.
I'm saying that we don't have any resources. We're in with whatever the city of Roswell has. We don't have any resources.
Mr. Chair.
Right, that's the resource. And the thing about it is that we weren't even asking that you deliver it to us. We said we would scoop it up. You know what I mean? We weren't even asking for that. And the other thing is that as far as we're not going to tell people where to go get colonoscopies. It's just March is colonoscopy month. That's it. And these are from the American Medical Association links. That's where we're getting the information. So if they were going online, it would be the same information. And we're not trying to be pseudo doctors or quasi doctors or anything. It's just information that's out there, but our seniors don't have a way of getting it.
Okay, let me go with our,
If I could, Mr. Chair, let me walk through a lot of the procedural stuff and then come back forward. The Commission on Aging is a City of Roswell commission.
advisory committee.
It's an advisory commission. And that's the challenge, I think, with what Ms. Wakefield, the confusion more than anything, probably not a challenge, more of a confusion that we have with this is that they're an advisory body. So they think of the things that they believe the city should do to support their mission, and then they advise the city council of that. And what we have here is a request for that ability. The commission is made up of one city councilor and up to 6 other individuals. That's the grouping of that. So,
And if I heard correctly, Mrs. Wakefield or maybe,
yep.
she indicated Judy Stubbs. Was she the?
Judy Stubbs was appointed as the liaison or the.
I know Judy Stubbs is online.
Yeah. And this commission is a little bit different than some of the other ones because the counselor is actually a voting member on this commission. This commission was put together in the 90s at the same time as the Commission on ADA and Accessibility. So this one has a counselor that is appointed on there as a voting member along with these citizens. And so the structure's fine. And their job, of course, is to advise the city council what they want to do. I will also say that in all the conversations we've had over the 5 years in our budgeting and everything else, we've considered the youth and the seniors as being very important classes of individuals for the city. And so we usually book in on both those ends and walk through that. So we have really hefty programs on the youth side. And again, with the adult center and everything, we're trying to do the same thing for our seniors. We have a large group of seniors as well too. So this mission here, I think we addressed it a little bit there that the seniors are still a paper group. Essentially, a lot of them go online, but they like to have it in their hands. And so the idea of putting these things out are good. I would say that we as staff, we would recommend this ability and we would follow along with the Commission on Aging's recommendation to the city council. We don't have a budget line item for this amount at this time with that, so we would ask for that assistance. But I believe it'll go a long way to help with our reinvigorating the adult center as well too. I mean, that's part of the thing. What we would work closely with the Commission on Aging in order to eliminate any of these opportunities where we get into the questionable thing. We can't recommend a doctor. We can't recommend certain things, but there's so many other things we can provide to them. I think partnering with the Joy Center is a very good thing. I mean, we've done synchronistic operations for a while. I think we've come together occasionally, but having us come together a little bit tighter will be a beneficial thing for our seniors as well too. So
I'm hearing you that the staff is recommending that the city get involved with this project.
I believe we should be helping and following what the Commission of Aging is recommending and staff. Yep.
This could be taken care of at this budget or no?
Again, we're talking nickels and dimes, within the budget structure.
Every nickel counts. So.
Yeah, I know, and we'll try to plug that in there. I will guarantee as we get better. Again, I know that there are a lot of agencies out there that could assist us with that. I believe if we had the right time, I think legislation, the Aging and Long-Term Services Group, the AELTSD. There is funding out of that group as well too in order to help support this thing in the future. What I'm asking is, I would say, is that let us help seed it, let us help get it started, and build that structure with that. I would say that we're an advocate for this as well because it's going to help one of our needed groups.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
So first up, I think it's great because reach these people, especially if they're homebound. But total print run, you're talking about 325 pieces? Is it
Per month.
325 8.5 by 11 or 325 quarter size?
I think it was 325 full-size sheets
Correct.
per month.
Okay,
So 325
month.
times 4. Yeah,
okay,
because they wanted them quarter size.
okay. If this goes well, I think maybe later we should revisit making it larger so they can actually put larger print. Yeah, so they can see it and everything. The distribution is primarily Meals on Wheels.
And grocery stores, other areas where Helen, Sandy and I could drop them off at different locales.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, we try it for a few months. And if it's going really well, we may extend the distribution or even try to change the print size.
Thank you.
So let me ask the audience if there's anybody who wanted to jump in on this issue. Nobody? Anybody on online would like to jump in? Okay, if not,
I'm ready to make a motion.
who was the other one? Who's?
Angela has a motion.
Angela said she's ready to motion. And I think
Okay, Councilor Moore, you have a motion?
today, tonight, in there.
If everybody's done, I'll make the motion.
Okay, we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we have to move this to full council, right? That's what we're doing. That we move this to full council on the consent agenda, if possible, that we fund this and find the $3,120 or money that's needed to help to fund this for the council and the commission of the aging.
A second.
Have a motion by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor
Halverson.
Halverson. Any discussion?
Got her name?
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Really? Yeah.
Is your vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous. It goes on consent agenda.
Alex.
See, the next item. The next item is the consideration and approval of future site of Rocket Public Artwork.
Are you using these?
I used the clicker.
Piece it over here.
You want me to move?
There you go.
Good evening, Chair, councilors. So I'm presenting 6 potential sites for the rocket sculpture that we've discussed previously. And I got together with various staff and the artists over the last few months, and the criteria that we were looking for was feasibility of installation, a central location that has high visibility, accessibility in terms of parking available and abilities for people to walk up to be able to do the photo opportunities, and then also an aesthetic fit within its surroundings. The installation needs, just to remind you, the diameter is going to be approximately 16 feet around, the height 35 feet. It needs access to electricity, ability to have concrete and anchors, so a site that's feasible for that. Also the ability to use a crane and other installation equipment to get the sculpture on site, and then room for signage as well. And this is what I had in your packets for the abstract. We ended up looking at 6 sites. I'm going to walk you through those one by one. The first one that we wanted to look at is the Roswell Transit Center. And as you're aware, that's on 515 North Main Street. Based on those criteria, those considerations, it best met those criteria. It's able to be integrated into a current remodeling plans that Becky is working on. And so the site is available. And what we're looking at, I don't have a pointer, I guess, but the green arrow there is that corner on 6th and Main Street. There's access to electricity, there's parking, They're going to be redoing the parking so that there's going to be some spots available within that parking lot that you're seeing on the aerial view. There's also some street parking available. With the updates that are going to be done to the transit center, it's in alignment with the era of the rocket. We're kind of looking at a retro feel, so 1940s, 50s, 60s, which the transit center reflects those 1940s, 50s feels. It also provides a welcoming entrance that sets a tone for downtown, has high visibility, access to downtown. And then that brick wall that's behind it is an area that can be artistically expanded, whether it's just for signage or for something else that becomes a backdrop for the sculpture. And so here's a view that you're probably used to. And then it changed recently. So the sign that was there and the tree are now down. So the image on the right side there is reflective of how it currently looks. The next one is the Roswell Convention Center. And again, the aerial view, again, 912 North Main Street. We were looking at the southeast corner of the convention center where the green arrow is on the aerial view. We felt that it actually wasn't as good of a site because if the convention center is ever expanded sometime in the future, that would be the direction it would be expanding, is down south. Also, in terms of parking right now, there is that little parking lot that's just south of the arrow, but that's typically used by staff and vendors. And so currently we're not inviting the public to park there. We would rather them use the large parking lot. So the distance is a little bit far away. And again, this is the area that we're kind of looking at. But if the convention center expanded out, it really would mean that we would place it there and then it may potentially have to be moved in the future, which we're trying to avoid. Another location was the Robert Goddard Planetarium. In terms of installation, very feasible to install there. I have the green arrow on the right side of the pathway leading to the planetarium. It really could be on either side. It could be more on the corner. Conceptually, it does tie into the Robert Goddard in terms of being a rocket, although it doesn't have, it's not as visible from Main Street. So it really be hard to see if you were driving by. So it kind of might miss the tourist market that's coming directly down Main Street, although it would obviously hit the tourists that are coming to the planetarium. There is some street parking available, but we do, unless we're doing special events, we mostly close down around 6 o'clock. And so the fact that there's going to be some lights that are installed are going to be a really neat component of the sculpture, wouldn't have the opportunity to be admired as much, being that it wouldn't be accessible to Main Street quite as visible to Main Street. Again, it could be on either side of the pathway if it was in this location. Pioneer Plaza was another one that was looked at. Feasible to install, accessible to downtown. It was probably the best location in terms of accessibility for photo opportunities. It is representative of a pioneer, although a rocket pioneer. And so in that way, it's really not in keeping with the original concept of Pioneer Plaza. So I know a lot of people might not be interested in that site, but it does tie into the visitor center and the tourist market. And there's a couple locations that we were looking at. One was the grass area, and then also the concrete area that's just south of the grass there. And so you're looking at that again. And there's another view of the concrete area. The Roswell Chamber of Commerce was also considered. This one was a bit challenging for the group when we took a look at it. My image moved, as did my, sorry. So my arrows moved from the original. But we were looking at the two bottom arrows, so the corner, either corner of the chamber, and then we were also looking at the parking lot. The corners of the building really didn't offer too much, enough room to place the sculpture, so it's going to be too confined. And then the parking lot, it would mean that we were taking away a spot or two or three in the parking lot, and it's already a small parking lot. The other thing is that it's not as visible from downtown, even though it's on Second, you wouldn't be able to see it directly from downtown as easily. And then aesthetically, it doesn't provide the best backdrop for the sculpture. So here's a couple more views, again, kind of confining fairly small area to install. Another location, and this is the last of the group, is the Spring River Zoo and Park. Maybe it's Park and Zoo, sorry. What's that?
It's just Spring River Zoo now.
Okay, just Spring River Zoo, apologies. This is an overview of all of that area. However, what we ended up looking at, and this was working with John, the director, was the corner over here. So some of the challenges that we ran into were that there's a master plan, there's ideas for expansion, and even expanding the parking lot. And so in talking with John, where we put the arrow, it was the safest location. So for instance, the parking lot might get expanded further east. So this would still be a safe location for it. And then conceptually, there was just this question whether it really tied into the zoo, although obviously it was the original location of the rocket. So there is a tie-in that way. But in terms of a rocket and the zoo and the animals, there was just this question of whether there was a concept that tied in together. And then this was the picture that I had available, but it would be kind of off in this other location, just off the parking lot. And those are all the locations. So we stand for questions, and that the artist is also here, Josh Berry, and he may want to add a little bit to what I expressed to you. And of course, we're both available for questions as well.
Where do you guys?
Can I get him to, if he wants to add anything to it?
I think the only thing I would add is, I think direction when this whole first thing started, and we've been talking about possibly. I think the only objection I really have up to these is going back to the zoo, just because when I was approached with this thing many, many years ago now, the reason I agreed to it and the concept behind it with the counselor that came to me for it was for a tourist attraction, a draw for downtown. And when I was approached with it, it actually was supposed to be, and there was a concept drawing up of the original signage that was a welcome to downtown signage. So the whole time I've been prepping for this thing and trying to nail down exactly what we're going for in the feel of it. It has been a downtown project for me. So moving it back out to the zoo for me, I do feel is not taking advantage, I feel, fully of what the intention was for it, was to be a big, shiny, dramatic draw for people to look at that come to town. And also we've talked about before the fact that so many people have a history with this thing. Now, site-wise, otherwise, aside from the zoo, I did go down and do measurements on both of these places and took pictures from different angles to see how it would be best photographed, if that's going to cause any concerns, how much site we have on the pad itself, how much standing area that we have for people to mill around and talk and take pictures and what have you. And it turned out that the Pioneer Plaza and the transit station, although very different in sizes, Pioneer Plaza has 4 times the size for standing area of any other spot there. But they're both very adequate for what it is we're trying to do on both of those spots. And I think we've been, I think we have looked at, oh no, you already said that, about the backdrop on the wall for the transit building. And that was another idea that we came up with that makes that place a little special, is it does have that giant 10-foot tall, 30-foot wall behind it. That's kind of a canvas for anything, even a different project, maybe bring other artists into it as well, to do something for the community on that. So that's kind of it, all I have on those sides. If anybody has any questions at all.
Committee members, do you have any questions?
I asked a few people involved with like Main Street Roswell, because I'm all for downtown art. Their consensus was Pioneer Plaza is a great location because it is downtown. It's highly visible. The problem we have, like with the chamber and some of these other locations, even the transit center, is you guys see people stop and park to take pictures, and there's really not enough parking in some of those locations to do that. Pioneer Plaza is full of parking. I don't know, you guys have probably took into account the slope on the grass. I don't know if you're planning to do a cutout or something.
Well, I talked to the guy that I'm going to use as the engineer on the whole thing. Actually, I talked to the engineer and I talked to the guy that will be doing the work, and discussed these 2 different places this morning, what the difference would be, because Pioneer Plaza already has a concrete slab there. And what I said was, if we go back and stick a taller, heavier structure on that, what is required for that concrete slab? And he said, where the concrete is not a big deal. They cut it out, they compress the soil for the load that's going to be on it and re-concrete over the top. He said, on the grass, I said, you know, obviously it's tilted up, so we would probably want to cut a cove out of it, have a retaining wall, and have the pad under that. He said that's significantly more expensive to do it on the grass, regardless of electricity being available at either spot. So
Okay.
it's doable either way, but it's a lot cheaper to do it on the concrete part that's already there.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me see, Councilor Moore. Councilor Moore,
Yes,
do you have any
yes,
questions?
I'm listening to this. I originally was with the idea of taking it back to the zoo, but I really do like this idea. But is that close to the visiting center where if it's on the cement? Because if we want it to be a visiting type thing, I think that idea is great about the plaza. I thought it'd be cooler in the grass, but I guess I understand the price part. Did you say extensionally different? How much different?
He said it's probably about 4 times the cost to go in and do it on the grass as opposed to the pad that's
You got
already
it late.
there.
Oh, okay. And
The
I
grass
don't know.
is pretty, I agree.
Yeah. So
And that
and I
pad's
just
pretty.
It is, and it's wide open.
it's
So you
wide.
told me-
That's what I was saying. It's wide open. It's more visible to see. It doesn't. If you're in the grass, it doesn't take away as much the purpose of the plaza as it do if you put it on the cement where all the other that kind of stuff is. But I'm not so bad on the idea of the station. I mean the bus station either because of the field and its age and all that. I'm not so bad with that either. But I actually probably like that one better on the corner over there at the bus station. But I'm liking these two better. Like I said, I still wanted it. I thought it better at the zoo, but I like this idea. So, and if it's kind of used as visitor stuff for downtown, I'm good with that. I'm not going to fight it like I thought I was. I'm okay with either of those two. I don't whatever y'all whatever we come up with. I think it's good.
Okay.
So I'm done for now.
Councilor Best.
Yes, sir. So my question, Caroline, is right across the street from the bus station is Robert Goddard's rocket that's there. Kind of catty corner to the,
You mean the museum?
where the transit station is. And you go catty corner to the northwest. That starts the museum area and then
It's quite a bit further out.
it's quite a bit further. But the whole idea of what we're trying to do with downtown Roswell, from what I understand in the last year or two, we're trying to get people to move from the main street Roswell to go to McDonald's, then maybe the transit station to get their picture taken with the welcome sign. Then from there, they'll be able to see Goddard Rapids and the museum, and there'll be signage. I'm sure we'll put signage there to get them to move a little farther north. So it's like moving cattle from water to water. So you're moving people from Main Street Roswell downtown, moving them farther north so we can get them in our facility at the museum. Once you get them hooked there, you've got Robert Goddard's working area, and it ties that rocket into it. Plus that rocket is tied into the retro theme because your lights are more than likely going to look kind of eerie if you want to go with that. Plus you have your backdrop of the wall. You could probably put Roswell on the back of the wall if you want to paint your bricks. Put Roswell back there and then a small welcome sign. The only thing I'm scared of is people that are taking pictures are going to back up into the road. So you're going to have something like on Scythian Opals where you have the bars and stuff to hold people in. Have it your sidewalk on the outside, then your bars to make sure that people don't back up into the traffic. You're going to have that over there at Plaza Center anyway, because people back up and take pictures because you're going to stick that in the corner instead of over where Chisholm and all that is, where you have plenty of room to take pictures. You're going to stick it over there on the cement or the grass, and they're automatically having a good time. They're backing up to get it all in their camera, which is not quite as bad nowadays because of our fancy cameras. But you got to be careful of them stepping into the traffic. But in my opinion, that starts moving people north, the direction we want them to go to look at the museum, because it is a great asset for us. My opinion. Thank you.
And just to reflect on that quickly, oh, sorry. No, you go ahead. I say Juanita was also reinforcing, like putting Roswell up behind it. So she has some ideas for that as well.
It's a greetings postcard. We've contacted the artist this is some of his work, but instead of it
Yeah, it's
saying
down all
welcome,
over Artesia, Riados and all that.
it's the same artist that did that.
It's kind of a Greetings Trail.
Correct.
idea.
Yes, that's what it was.
Counselor Culberson?
Because my concern too is exactly what she said. If you put it at the transit center, there's not enough room to take a picture. People are going to back up into the road. The bars idea, that's going to ruin the photo. You know, you're going to have that bar in front of it. So that's, to me, that's why the transit center just won't work. Because you see it all the time in Lewis sees it, the UFO museum. People stand in the middle of the street blocking traffic, taking pictures. If you put it on Pioneer Plaza, you can move it back. There's that corner's huge.
It is.
You can put it back enough where you don't have to put bars and they'll take their pictures without getting in the traffic.
Anybody from the public, the audience, have any comments? Okay, then it's my turn. You know, I've been against this from the very beginning. And unfortunately for you, the problem that I see is you got directions from one counselor. When you were approached, it was one counselor's idea. And when he presented it to the general services at that time, 3 of us said no. And so he went to finance. And he was able to talk to finance to take it to city council. But when it was originally presented, it wasn't presented as a tourist attraction. It was presented more of paying homage to our community through what it represented for a lot of the community people.
Which is also still one of my objectives.
And I think that, in my opinion, that should be the number one focus. And if that is the number one focus, then I believe that the park would be the best location, because if we're doing it for the local people here to try and take them back in time and share those kind of experiences with their kids or the younger generation, the park is the best place that they can make that connection. Even though the piece of art, to me, doesn't represent the slide, because obviously the slide is not a part of it. And so when you took out the slide, then it became just a piece of art, not something that we could go back in time and tell our kids, look, this is a slide where I used to slide in, or my kids or your dad, whatever. And so, you know, if the intent is for tourism and tourism purposes only,
It's not.
then I would say probably the Pioneer place would be probably the best place. But if it's to encourage people to go back, reminisce with their kids and share those kind of experiences, then I would say the park would be the best, because then they would have something to compare with a new slide versus well, I can't even call it a slide, because I mean, because that really is not a true representation of the actual slide. Because now you got a motor underneath it, you got the things that go on the sides. Yeah, so, you know, but my concern still remains. Are you going to be able to guarantee to the council that you are going to be able to stay within the $75,000 when you start installing it?
Well, I can't guarantee any figures until we have a location and we know which location we're going to go to, because for me to take the time to go to each location, go to the people that are going to install this, get estimates on all of these takes a lot of my time, which is not being compensated for. So I think the work I've done already on the sites that seem most feasible for the location, I do have estimates and I have contacted those people over the last 2 months since this was approved to make sure everything could go through the way I think it could go through. And I've been assured that that won't be a problem and that I do believe we can still do this for what the budget was allotted originally when it was approved.
Which would be up to 90,000.
Which would be up to 90,000 with the buffer over the 75. And, you know, I hear your concerns. I want to say to everybody, I'm not in here trying to gouge anything. I know it's a big number, but this is a year. It's probably a solid year of work for me. We've estimated it at 3,000 hours. And at that, I'm making $15 an hour or less. So this isn't anything for me to do that's not a passion project. I'm actually losing money by canceling jobs this year to do this job. And it's been 4 years I've been hanging on waiting. So I'm doing it for sentimental reasons. That's why I'm doing it. Sure, I love to do the job, but I'm a sentimentalist. That's why I do retro things. So I do believe that I agree with what you're saying on it being sentimental out of the park, but I also slightly disagree with you because Kevin Mabers, who is here, he's not from Roswell. He went bananas over it when I saw it, and he knows a different one from a different place. So for him to go out to the park, it's not going to change the experience or reminiscing for him at all, as if it's on a corner over here. I don't believe. And I've had many people contact me online from friends from different cities that I've had, friends from Roswell that I've had since this thing came out in the paper a couple of years ago. They're constantly, is this thing happening? Is this? And these people all grew up on one too, but they weren't in Roswell. So my goal is to do what you say, which is the sentimental value of it and give it back to the people. But my goal is also, and this was how it was approached to me. I don't know what Jacob said to you guys, but when we got together, the whole talk was, how can we use our strengths and our qualities and our jobs to help Roswell? That was our entire discussion. And I'm not a meeting guy. I'm just not. I'm here, but I'm not a meeting guy. So I said, that's not my thing. That's not my area. You know what I do. This is what I do. I would love to contribute to the community in the way that I can do it. And so for me, this is both. This is for tourists because some of these tourists grew up on one of these. And this is for the city because I don't go out to the zoo as much as I should. I have a daughter now, so we went 3 weeks ago. It was great. But I don't utilize that as much. A lot of my friends don't utilize it as much, but we're downtown every single day. So the people that drive through this see it. As much as I would like to direct them out to the zoo because this is where it originally was with signage on it or whatever have you, that was the original intention. I don't know how many are actually going to go out there and look at it, especially if it's off in the grass, because it may need to be moved and there's kind of nothing around it sitting out there. For me, I'm putting in a lot of effort on this thing and a lot of time. And even the lighting, which we talked about over at the planetarium. My point for that was I'm going to be spending probably 4 months wiring this thing up to do crazy things. And if it's sitting in a location like the zoo that's not open at night, why did I go to all that trouble? Why put all the lights in it? It's just going to sit there by itself and nobody's going to see it doing it. So for me, what this is being built as, and I'm trying to turn it into a repurposed vision of what the original slide was. And I wanted to do the original slide, but I was told that we couldn't because of code. So my original intention was to leave the hole, put the slide out and have another artist do 2 bronze statues of children coming out. But that was vetoed and we said, I was told that we couldn't go that route. So this is what we came up with instead. But
Vetoed by who?
You know, Jacob and I talked about it and we threw it around a couple. And he said he talked to some people and I was all going off of what his end was. I do my thing over there, you know. So that's what he said is it probably wouldn't meet code because of the fact it's still open and it can be crawled into and kids can crawl up the slide and get into it and it's a danger. So we vetoed that. Point being, I do want to keep every bit of sentimentality and history in this that we can. I just want to present it in the most efficient spot for what I'm trying to do, which is appeal to everyone, not just Roswell people, but all my friends from different cities that had one that come visit me, all the people that drive through from Amarillo that had one that come through and go down Second or Main and see it. So that's the intention. And I really do. I did go by and take pictures of all the locations. I stood back and saw how far it would be to get the whole thing in, to get half of it in, to get a little selfie in, whatever. And you do have to walk on the street over by the transit center. The only way to do it is to go over to the Harvest Ministries or what have you, get it in. That's the concern there. And that's why I do believe Pioneer Plaza is the best spot for it. I think it checks all the boxes. I don't think it really conflicts with the theme of the plaza. I would never put it over by the other sculpture and do that to another artist. Obviously, we would keep it separate from that. But I think it fits the theme of the town very well. We make our money off of space and aliens. And so for me, this is a good entrance to downtown to set a field, as if it's not already set, but to enhance a field that we are trying to build and market off of. That's my long spiel.
So my question to Joe, if indeed it comes above and beyond the $90,000, obviously it's going to be up to the council to determine whether they want to continue with it or not. Is that?
It would be up to the council if it comes to that. I believe that the site of Pioneer Plaza has all those pieces in there in order to keep those costs down, because it's the artwork plus the installation. The less money we spend on installation, the better artwork we get. That's the whole structure that we have with this. And so the idea is that if we can, if that area, and I agree, I don't think that concrete pad area takes away from the Pioneer Plaza for the bronze that's there as well too. This may even help make that meeting space a meeting space again, is what will happen with that. So, but you are correct, sir. It's if that budget is beat, then it will have to come back to the council. We are good with the price plus the
20%.
Yeah, the 10% or whatever that was, that overage, that could be based upon unforeseen circumstances. So,
okay.
But I'm hearing that we can meet that.
And I understand what you're saying about the nostalgia, but I think this is twofold. It's covering the nostalgia, and we're paying so much money for it. I'd hate to put it at the zoo. My biggest concern is the zoo. I've been out there in that spot. Kids are going to climb on it. They're going to damage it out there in that space. It's out in the middle of nowhere pretty much. You know, they have.
So what is the difference between having this?
Well, downtown.
And at the zoo, if you're going to provide some kind of fencing or.
Well, I wouldn't, that's what I'm saying. If you put it in Pioneer Plaza, you don't have to put a fence around. They're ruining the photo op. You know, nobody wants to take pictures. I don't know if you've ever gone places where they have ugly bars up around what you're trying to take pictures of. But there's more traffic there. The chances of someone climbing on it on Pioneer Plaza in a high visibility spot versus out there in the middle of the zoo where nobody ever goes. It's just a huge difference.
If I can add to that, I agree with you on high visibility because of also things getting vandalized, like the signs on outside of town. Nobody's out there, so there's been stickers all over them. So
they'll still do it to this.
Well, what we've kind of done on this, because we thought about that and people crawling on it, we don't want that for insurance reasons and liability. So what we've actually come up with is we're going to put an integrated and styled barrier around it, which is a small wall that I've still yet to design, but it's going to match the feel of it. So yeah, so it will be so people know they're hopping over something they shouldn't. It doesn't mean they won't do it.
Yeah.
But it gives them something to deter them from doing it. It'll be low enough for them.
Well, I think if we're spending that kind of money, put it where people can see it.
Yeah. And
so, well, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to add to it again that being out at the zoo, like you said, although it's locked up, so I doubt people are going to crawl over there and vandalize it at night, but you never know. I just think the more central and visible a location, the less people are likely to mess with it anyway, because they don't know if they're being watched.
So what are we being asked, Juanita, with this item? to send it to full
Consider-
council to consider all 6 of them?
Consider an
Or
approval.
are we going to select the top 3, top 2?
The way that the abstract was written is consideration and approval of future site of Rocket Public Art.
So send it with all 6 of them to be considered.
I'll make a motion to be select one.
I was gonna say, I make a motion that we select 2 because I think giving 6 is another 6-hour conversation. So I think we have the responsibility. I think as a group, we can limit the choices and give it to them with less choice.
I believe what we can do is we will supply all the locations, but I believe that the recommendation from this group should be only 1 or 2. Anytime you get additional recommendations like that, it does get a little more messy, right? And so, but
till 1 o'clock.
Yeah. And we're happy to stay with you if we need to, but I would say that we want to share with everybody all of the different locations, but I think this group should actually narrow it down so that there is at least some understanding. And, I don't think we talked about putting dollar amounts to that all, but if you want to have the artwork right, you want to spend less on installation as well.
So does a motion have to say that we are recommending these 2 out of the 6, but the discussion is still going to allow conversation for other counselors to say, well, I feel that maybe we need this other side.
Chamber or anything. I believe we always have to make sure that the council understands they have those options. And that was why in the presentation, we'll present all of those options, but then we'll provide the recommendation from the group as a whole that this is the 1 or 2 areas that they would suggest that are recommended based upon this conversation. That doesn't mean that you can't change your mind from here to the council room as well too, but we want to help provide that movement of the decision.
So do you want the second one to be the transit center or the zoo?
Oh, no. I'm not going to make a suggestion.
I will say that you can pick 1 if you wanted to. You could pick 2 if you wanted to. Actually, you pick however you want to do this. You could rank them, but I would say if you give them 1 recommendation, but we've given them the option to pick any one of the other ones, then I think you've met the ability for the council to go a different direction.
The motion has to say that here are 6 sites, and out of 6 sites, the general services recommended site 1, 2, whatever.
Well, I would just probably the downtown areas.
Okay, well.
Okay, so.
We need it.
Council Moore, do you have anything else to add?
No, I kind of feel the same. I just feel that we shouldn't let them start talking about all 6. I kind of agree to make the motion that we send it to full council with the recommendation of number 1, Pioneer Plaza, number 2, the bus station. That's kind of the transit system. That's kind of how my motion would go if I was given a motion.
And go ahead.
Are you making the motion?
Sounded right.
It sounded like a motion to me, so.
I'll second.
Like a motion.
Did you get the motion?
I got it. Yes.
Okay.
So Pioneer 1, Transit 2, more first, and however.
Transit 2 is mostly our major vote. And if you have to put the word out of 6, put it on there. That way they know, but we'll just say after discussion, then when y'all presented that, we reviewed all 6 of them. So.
Okay, so we have a motion and Juanita has it written down that we will consider all 6 of them, but we'll recommend
Pioneer Plaza.
2 of them. Okay. Is everybody good with that one?
I would be happy on the consent.
No.
That's not.
Even if it goes to consent agenda, I would pull it out. But, any further discussion?
Can I say? I want to say one further thing, Councilor. I feel the same way about how this came about how it got where it is. But we're here and the money is in it already, and that young man's time is valuable. So I understand how you feel about how it got here, because I felt the same way, and about where it should be, I felt the same way. So I just want, to tell that young man, I don't remember his name, that thank you for his time and thank you for here. I like when he said that he was nostalgic too, and he felt that way. I kind of just thought, all right, I'm not going to keep fighting this. We know it's money that, that there's got, we not got to be spent, because not like we don't have that kind of money, but for it to get it done, let's get it. And if we're going to do it, let's do it right. I'm tired of saying that, but if we're going to do it, we're not going to, half do it, and let's do it right when we get it done. So we expect a great product, and thank him very much for his time.
Councilor Moore, thank you for your input. I've appreciated it. It's a whole lot.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Did I hear an aye from you? Ms. Moore? I think
Yes, I
heard
said
it.
aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Then I'll say aye to it. All those
Yay.
opposed? Are you opposed? Are you opposed?
No, I was saying yay. I was saying yay that you finally said yay.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And so that concludes the action items. And so we will go to the next item.
Mr. Chair and committee, this is a non-action item. I'm just here to report the news that we got some awarded money for the trails, and engineering will now be 4 out of 4 of applications. Application number 1 was the Spring River Trail, which was built last year, rehab last year from the zoo to Virginia. Application number 2, which we just completed and had the DOT here to inspect it today, was the Hondo Trail from 2nd to Virginia. Application number 3 is Spring River Trail upgrade, just like we did on the Spring River Trail, but now we'll go from Iron Cross Park, Pennsylvania to Union. Award number 4, which is $225,000, is a trail connection, which those of you been in council or watch council, this will be version 5.0 or something like that. This is the picture that I have is an old picture. It was used for the application, but those of you been around and paid attention, we've talked about a trail connection several times. The difference this year is that we haven't got the agreement yet, but we got the award letter. Now we have $225,000 to work with of DOT money. Of course, 15% will be our contribution, but that's what I'm here to report.
Okay. Any questions? Ms. Moore, you got any questions?
Oh, we heard that yesterday.
Okay. Councilor Best?
No, sir. We had it yesterday.
Okay. And this is a non-action item, so is there any comments from the public? And if not, we'll go on to the next one.
You can drive.
Mr. Chair, councilors in the service committee, this request was to discuss and cover a little bit more about the cost recovery processes, what it is, what it means, and all of that. I put a few slides together. I will run over some of them very quickly just for your sake, that they're there for your information if you would like to see them forward. But in all practical purposes and missing, all right, we'll be all right. So cost recovery and the city of Roswell has used cost recovery. The state of New Mexico uses cost recovery. The cost recovery is essentially revenue sources and how much of that revenue comes from what structure. Within this process, this is put together by Green Clay for more of recreation, parks and recreation. So they say that if it is a high community benefit, then the city will cover additional of those costs, subsidized essentially with property tax, grocery receipts tax, whatever those other funds are. And then so the user fee portion will be a lot lower because it has a higher community benefit. As it goes up this pyramid, it changes that structure. So liken it to swim lessons where everybody in the general public's allowed to come out. They can do swim lessons. At the top of the pyramid where it goes, it's a more individualized activity. And they say that it should be covered more with the user fees rather than subsidized. I would liken that, if we stay in the recreational explanation, is that karate classes, individual people taking karate should cover more of that cost of the instructor and that purpose. So when you get down here, this is more for the general benefit of all, and then it works its way up where the cost is adjusted within that. When I talk about the state of New Mexico and everything, most of their cost recovery is on like enterprise funds or utilities. So we are required by state and federal law within our utilities as well too, to charge appropriately for that service. If our rates are not high enough, we're actually not even eligible for federal funding in order to cover that. So this is what the background of the process was.
All right, I missed a slide.
All right. So
Is it in the packet?
It's not in the packet. It is his first slide about what is cost recovery. That was my fault. I'm sorry. I didn't.
And so it is about the fees. I've covered most of that. What we've done also is that your cost recovery can be anything from zero. It can actually be more than what the cost of the service is if it's a profit generator. Think of a convenience store that sells a candy bar. They don't sell it for what the cost of the candy bar is. They sell it for more, and it offsets other costs. Yeah. All right. So from there, we go into this chart here. And then what we did in the 2020 budget was we tried to explain it in a more of a verbal format. We had the graphical understanding of you go up the pyramid and you're paid differently. What we did here is we tried to do it in a more written format so we could actually show the explanation of that. So you have 0 to 15% cost recovery at the top. That is more of the community as a whole. That is where those structures are, and it works its way down where the services, instructional levels and everything else, and you bring it all the way down to the exclusive, which is a tier 5, and we say it can be 100% or more than the cost recovery if there is no community benefit. And so that allows for these activities to be fully paid for by the individual that wants to do it, but the benefit through there. And you can see in there some of the examples for tier 2, we have adult socials, swim lessons, and then you get into tier 3, you're having team swimming, you're having the youth special interest and everything. So the idea of the cost recovery is all there. I mentioned about New Mexico and the city of Roswell. Over the last 5 years, we went through a lot of the conversation on cost recovery. Part of it was based on 2 different pieces of this thing. The anti-donation clause for the state. You are not, and I've got a couple slides in there. So we learned early on because of some issues that happened in Las Cruces on lodger's tax. There was a lot of different things where lodger's tax was not being spent appropriately, and it became in a conflict with the anti-donation. So we mended that within the lodger's tax, and it became more of a cost recovery kind of structure. And then, of course, the city services on there as well, too. The idea about the city services, we get into this part right here. What we were asked to do 5 years ago was to try to find more funding for roads, more funding for public safety. The challenge we have is that we weren't able to generate any really new money for public safety. For some reason, somebody shot down my ability to charge per ticket for how many tickets. We can't have a quota for writing tickets, right? I mean, so that service has to lean on our property taxes, has to lean on our sales tax more than other services. We want to try to meet the expectations of doing more roads. Roads comes out of the general fund as well too. It comes from property taxes, it comes from gross receipts taxes, but we want to do more roads. Now, how are you going to generate more money for these services? One of the options for the roads would be to charge assessments to all the property owners that are contiguous to the road and charge for those roads. That was not looked at favorably by the city council at that when we were talking about that. So it became that the public safety, the roads became a desire to protect them with the general fund, with the property tax, with the gross receipts tax. The trade-off had to be that we had to generate money out of the other departments. So we had a free zoo, we had a free museum. If we could generate more of their money, one, they become more stable, they become more supportive of themselves, but they also, the money that we are not spending to subsidize those services are being placed into these areas here. Anti-donation clause, really quickly, there's a lot of different interpretations of that out there, but essentially there's seven different subsections within the anti-donation that funds can be donated to. One is sick and indigent people. Another one is economic development. But it says that no state, county, city, school district, municipality, except as otherwise provided, that's those 7 things, A through G, shall directly or indirectly lend or pledge its credit or make any donation to or in aid of any person, association, public or private corporation. So the processes that we were using in order to divvy out free services, divvy out free funding for certain things, were in conflict, we believe, with this anti-donation. The change in the structure is that if you have an agreement with them, so like an agreement with Main Street, agreement with the EDC, those are causes for service. Before I got here, the state DFA came down and made us change. We had $1 a year, I believe, for the Boys and Girls Club for the building there. The state said, nope, you have to have a fair value back and forth of the lease of that building. We had to change that. And so we changed the structure, but they now have a square foot lease price on that building. But we also have a contract with them that provides for the service that they are providing to the city. And we say that we would provide that service if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls providing it. Therefore, we have this lease agreement with them for the building, plus we have that on the other side. So just the information on the anti-donation clause. Some of these were the Attorney General opinions over the year. This came actually from the University of New Mexico's website. When you look at some of these Attorney General opinions, you can see some similarities into why we've been adjusting a lot of different things. The Department of Public Safety used to provide dormitories and meals to the Boy Scouts at a substantially reduced cost. In 1990, the Attorney General says that's not actually allowed to be done. You cannot do substantially reduced pricing unless there is a value back on that relationship. So we try to create that. A city cannot make donations to the Chamber of Commerce and include such contributions in the city budget. 1943, 1944 is when that opinion came out. We can have a contractual relationship with them, but we cannot just do a donation. So you can see within the anti-donation clause, we've been doing a little bit of cleanup on this as we walk through this. This is why we run into all of the different challenges that we have with how some of that structure goes. So when we talked about, we wanted to put more money to public safety, we wanted to put more money to streets. The general administrative understanding from the city council was we are not going to cut and reduce any of the services though. So the challenge we had is that how do we generate new revenue? How do we generate more funding for that? That's where the cost recovery comes in line as well too. In 2020, we set an overall cost recovery for the city of just 50-50. We said, depending on what that service is, we should be at least recovering some of the costs for everything that we can recover costs for. And then that would be until or unless the city council establishes more specific guidelines for special programs. So we left it with the city council having the ability, you can adjust the knob, you can move the dial and everything, because we weren't sure, because I can't charge for police. I can only charge for specific things for fire. hazard materials and certain things like that. And so we were working through that. We also set within that budget, within that structure, the administrative directive that our minimum level for cost recovery would be zero. So if it is a mission of the city council, it will be a zero cost recovery. We're going to cover it with our property tax. We're going to cover it with our gross receipts tax. All the way up to we can charge for 160% of what that value is. And the visitor center is probably a prime example of that, is that when we sell those alien glasses, we mark those up over what the cost is. We buy them at a wholesale price. We mark them up in order to get that return, because that money can then be divvied out to everybody else. So that's the whole concept within the cost recovery, and exactly how we walk through the directive for that levels of cost recovery. These are some of the cost recoveries in place. So the idea is that we did not want, because we're a tourism community as well too, we did not want to charge just the locals for the service. We want to charge everybody that comes in. We want them to help fund that service that they enjoy, so that the locals don't have to carry the burden. And we just talked about it with the park as well too. The challenge is that we can go after additional legislative dollars. We're not assured that we're going to get them, but at some point in time, we have to take care of our own, and we have to find a way in order to fund that. So the idea with the cost recovery as well too was to try to find a way that we could get, when people are coming here, we treat them like friends and family, and then they can go home, and then we can utilize whatever they left here in order to take care of our people. Every one of our city councilors had a different outlook on this, and so that's kind of where the administrative directives came from and pulled this together. We started to put together certain guidelines. This is what I put into my report to the city council. May of 2018, we did a cost recovery guideline for the recreation. It's a very detailed format as to how we would run each program. While the overall is a 50-50 coverage, they can adjust. If it's a karate program, we can charge a little bit more. If it's a swim program, we can charge a little bit less. We left them the latitude to do that. In September 2019, we went through a cost recovery percentage for the Spring River Zoo. That went through a couple different models. That was initiated by a city councilor to set a certain cost recovery percentage. We've since amended that, and we came into what we put into the cost recovery subsidy guidelines in the fiscal year 21 budget. I also sent out an email on waivers, venues, and volunteers. Digress just a little bit. I don't believe in that there is such a thing as a waiver. Not really. It's just who's paying for that cost. So a waiver just means somebody else is not paying for it, but we have to cover that cost. We do that with the convention center. We do that with any of the services. So every council meeting we have at the convention center, the city is paying the cost of the convention center to be in the convention center. The idea is that if we're going to charge everybody else to be in there, then we're going to charge ourselves. So we utilize other dollars in order to move over to cover the cost of that service. And so that I just don't, the waiver is that if we don't provide the service, then we shouldn't provide the charge anyway. In 22, we did the golf course as well too, and we set that at a 70-30. I'll explain those a little bit more when we get there. I will tell you though, and I know this is where the cost recovery process gets lost in the shuffle. This is not about setting a fee structure, not really just setting $5, $10, whatever for the entryway, because the user fees for the facility is only one revenue source. There are all these other revenue sources that are out there. And this is where you get into it. So when we did the Spring River Zoo, we looked at what ways do we have in order to generate revenue. We have our donations. We have programming that we have out there. We have the birthday parties. We have the partners with local businesses. We have fundraising events. We have the entry fees on there. Again, we believe that there should be a value of that service, and that's why we set the entry fees, concessions and merchandise and sponsorship. When you wrap all those revenue sources together, it becomes that portion of that cost recovery that we're trying to collect. You take out one leg. We go back to a free zoo with no entry. that just takes out that leg. That means these other ones will still, they may be able to make up the difference, they may not. That's the structure within this for cost recovery. Cost recovery got tied into charging for the fees, and that's not really the intent of cost recovery by itself. Really quickly within the budget as well too, we talked about how to establish the service fee, because we are not saying when we have a 50-50 cost recovery or a 70-30 cost recovery, that does not mean every service that we provide is going to be 50-50 or every service is going to be 70-30. Within each one of the services, it could go from 0 to 160 depending on what that needed. So what we did is we provided this fee structure to our staff in order to help walk through that and how we would walk through that. And then this is the reason why I believe that all the fee structure should be approved by the city council, not by staff. We try not to do that. We try to funnel everything through the city council because Council, you'll remember the fees that we took to you for the zoo and the museum were actually higher than what was finally decided on by the city council. We believe that the value was a little bit more based upon the cost, but you said, no, we're going to cover this a little bit differently with our subsidies. And so that's how we ended up getting there. We also put in there that we will look at the fees that are included for an in-town reduced rate to residential differential, because we believe that our residents in the city pay property tax to people that live in the area, but not in the city, don't pay property tax to the city. So that's about a 24% differential within the cost of the service. We did not believe that the city residents should pay more for the same service, their service, than anybody in the community. So we established that. We added in the free days for the year because we wanted to make sure that those that would struggle to contribute, they would at least have an opportunity, and we might find some champions in that would love the service. So we did that. We did establish discounts for these special classes. We did occasional discounts for specific short-term efforts and developed out a sponsorship program as well too, because I believe Roswell has a very caring community. I think that we lose sight of how to ask them for their assistance and everything. And I think that's where this thing here is that I know that we've had some people with the rec center providing assistance to a number of our populace that cannot afford to pay the full amount. I think this is my last slide as well too. This is what we put together for the fiscal year 23. I'm using our big three services, our quality life service, our enrichment services, the museum, the zoo, and the golf course. Here's their budget at 1.2 million, 1.3 million, 1.2 million for respectively. Here's where they would be if they were hitting the 70-30 and cost recovery for that. Our current collections, this is what is based upon what we put into the budget. This is how much we believe we are collecting today for each one of these services based upon this. So if you look at these two numbers, you can see the differential with them. The city council, and within this budget as well too, we are supplying additional funding for all three of these accounts to bring these services whole within the structure. The museum is at a 7% cost recovery. The zoo is at a 7% cost recovery, and the golf is at a 21% cost recovery. So that's the structure that we have built there. When we talk about these percentages of 70-30 to 50-50, the challenge I have is that if we set the cost recovery too low and everybody meets that cost recovery and they're cheering and everything else, what did they actually get? They got a participation ribbon, for lack of a better way to say this. We want to set the goal high enough because, one, the more money that they are able to generate on their own, they are better protected through all this economic stuff that we dealt with. If people can't pay their property taxes, people can't pay their gross receipts tax, having them set up all on their own will protect them through these ebbs and flows. And I believe that'll help. If we have more needs in public safety, we added 5 police officers this year within the budget. You guys will consider it tomorrow. That amount was almost $500,000 or $600,000 that wasn't in the budget that luckily we have the cash to cover it. But that was there. So I just wanted to show you this, that while we have a cost recovery of 70, 30, 50, 50, the council has every right to change those numbers. We are currently not meeting to that level, but the city council is making sure that every one of our services is taken whole. The question is that what cost recovery where do you want to be with that cost recovery? That's really the question that you will want to talk about. I know through the election, there's a lot of conversation about the free services or what it is. It's only a piece of the puzzle. It's only a piece of it. And so where you want to go is in there. But this is the philosophy, this is the psychology within the structure that we put together as to why we were looking at it. I will say that Roswell has always had a cost recovery process for everything that it does. It just got lost in this whole conversation because we changed the fee structure for the museum and the zoo, essentially, as how they do that. I have heard from the golf course that they would like to have free services too, but those darn golfers. But no, and so I think that was my last slide on there, Mr. Chair. It is. And so I'll stand for any questions. This thing, I believe that you guys will be undertaking a longer conversation in a lot of different sources, but I wanted to lay out a little bit more of the philosophy in a non-action setting so that you guys had at least the understanding of the background to back up with the report and everything else. I'm not sure what it should be. I mean, that's your guys' call when you get said and done. It is a council decision for this. And we can implement anything that you choose to take on. I'll step for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So I know this is a fine science. So what do you determine, like the museum? I don't know what the cost is. Is it like $10 a person to go in now?
We have $10 right now.
For the out of town.
Yeah. So how do you determine maybe if you lower that, you'll get, like, say, go to $2 a person. Now you get more people going and you still recover.
Counselor, we had those conversations a lot when we were trying to set a fee. And we talked about even higher. We talked about lower. We could not figure out because you get the thing.
Yeah.
We were trying to understand the market for that. We knew that we have a museum that is unique. There is not another one like it. We know that everybody in New Mexico loves it. We just did not know. And so I believe we looked at a lot of comparables and everything else, and we said, this would be that rate. And then, of course, predominantly for our locals, we established those reduced numbers because of what those classes were. And then we also provided our museum.
And I'm just using them as an example.
Right. Yeah. The museum followers, we established that if you're a member of the bigger organizations, then you can get in for free for some of that. So we set that number based upon looking at, it was predominantly the comparables, and it was saying, what will the market bear? Prior to us, because it was all free, prior to that as well too, is that we did not have perfect counts of individuals coming in. Now our counts are even better. I think the museum did pretty good because we had somebody that sat at the front door and essentially counted through all the different unique visits. We had variables within the zoo because we didn't always have somebody standing there. We now see those numbers. And so we were trying to determine, and we based it all off the UFO museum because there's 250,000 visits to the UFO museum. How many of those visits are coming and enjoying everything else? So when we looked at that, we ended up setting that fee based upon predominantly the comparables and what we thought the market could bear. Our idea was that if we saw attendance drop too much, then we would lower the price. If we saw attendance go up, then we were trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, because it's all new. So I just wondered, is there a point you just do a review and determine if you want to change?
This is why we're tracking it every year. The idea that we haven't been at it long enough because COVID got in the way as well too. And so we haven't been at it long enough that we have really strong numbers on anything. I mean, this will be the first year that we actually have a full year in the rec center, I think, because we started a half a year. We had COVID and everything. So the intent is to review these numbers and determine whether or not if we slide it differently, we could see a different result out of our numbers.
Like the zoo, you could charge more for parties and less for admission, or, you know.
Yes, yes, yeah, and that's the way the cost recovery is supposed to work. And so, and so that's where we kind of went through there. I don't know if the system's perfect. I would assume it's not, because we have enough people that love it or hate it one way or another. The challenge was, where do we start and where do we end up? And this was our push in order to at least get a structure there. And now I think we have the ability to adjust based upon what you guys are hearing, what you're seeing in the marketplace and everything else. So.
That's all.
Councilor Moore, do you have anything?
I may have put her to sleep, but
I don't think she.
she's there.
Yeah. No. No, we've been visiting, this was I had this argument all, when we was going through this process about trying to understand this and the cost recovery and the price. So, I'm still not a complete fan. I do understand what some of the staff were saying about how it's helping to, there's charge a little bit, this, that, and the other. I'm still not a big fan, but I do think we got off a little bit of the cost recovery understanding to begin with at least when I got on and we started it. It was all brand new, so it was, quite convoluted information. So I appreciate this, but I still struggle with it. I still just, I'm sure there's a benefit. I know the money has to come from somewhere, because like they keep saying, nothing's free, And to me, I was like, okay, can we just pick one thing that would be free? We had to, so we revisit, something about number, because I remember the big argument we had about the 70-30 or whatever the number was going to be. There was a big argument and discussion about that. And what happens, a lot of the people aren't meeting the cost recovery anyway. We still having to pay for it. So I don't, I'm still, my concern is still really out there about it. And I'm glad we're revisiting this. I'm not sure how to what depth we're going to revisit it, but I do appreciate the conversation about it.
Well, my intent was to start the conversation and see if we could revisit and look where we're at as far as cost recovery is concerned. My basic interest is the zoo. And if I had my ruthers, I would not be charging at the zoo and redesigning the zoo as far as the way it is right now. But that was the whole purpose of trying to bring it up and trying to get the new counselors up to date, or at least have an idea of how we came about and where we're at right now. Not that we have to take any action, but
I think, Mr. Chair, one thing, some of the background on the zoo is that this was a service that was loved to death. And when there was extra money, then it would be fed to the zoo in the past. And then if there was no money, then we would make ends meet, however. The challenge was, and then we went on to the master plan. It's a $36 million master plan for a free zoo. That where does the money come from when you have public safety needs, when you have road needs? The idea was, and I know we had this conversation with the finance committee, because Ed Hildebrand made that comment. One of the Councilor Hildebrand said, we're having these conversations over essentially $20,000, because that's about how much our locals have paid for use of the zoo. Don't lose sight that there's about $30,000 over there that came from outside sources as well too. But the idea was that how do we bring the zoo up? I mean, we had issues with PETA. We have issues with, just the general care of the animals. It was a rescue zoo. Now we have other animals. I think it started kind of with the lemurs, that these animals were donated to the city in order to operate for them as well too. How do you take care of all of that and still try to take care of your public safety, try to take care of your roads and everything? And I think that was the challenge. Again, I don't mind if whatever the council wishes to do with that, we'll make it all work. But the challenge has always been, we're not creating any new, I mean, without fees or anything, we're not creating any new money. We're just moving the money around that we have. And so there will be a limit to what we can do for anything, right? And so I think that's the whole challenge with that. But I'm happy to take this on whichever way you want to go, because it's not a specific science, right? I mean, it is part artwork.
Well, and again, we can go back and digest the information. And if we need to bring it back again, I mean, we can bring it back again and have the discussion. And if we have to have some kind of action, then we can take that action at that,
Yes,
or at least a vote.
And I will tell you that over the months and everything is that the city council will see all fee structures that come, that we're recommending or changing. It doesn't matter what the fee is or the service is, you will see all of those fees. So the conversation actually for cost recovery will continue from here until eternity. So just figure out exactly how you want to cover that conversation when all this stuff is coming forward. But I know that we have a lot of different structures. We're trying to keep it affordable, trying to just cover our costs and everything. And so please let me know how we can help.
Which brings us to the next item, number 7. Report on City of Roswell Park canopy fees, and I think you had questions on that.
No, this is at the zoo. This other thing I had questions on.
Okay.
Yeah, something else.
You want to jump in here? You want me to start?
You go ahead.
All right, here we go. It's been a while, but last resolution, designating park fees, kind of goes back to what Joe was talking about here. Permits, reservations, kind of stopped shortly after the COVID started. So we got started, we had the fees set, we had COVID. Now we're back at it again. I'm happy to say that Recreation Department, they have a nice system going with their point of sale. I did have some reservations on how this has been handled in the past, and we've opened up petitions.
Yep.
And even Alex over there has helped, he's hiding. But current reservation fees payments are made online now. The Roswell Connect, we've analyzed flaws in the system, which we had a couple this week even, and are looking at attaching signs to all reservable areas. So the problems we've looked at, and as part of its communications, we have a difficult time enforcing this on the weekend. We're not here. So it leaves it up to code enforcement or the police or someone else. But you really don't know when you walk up to one of these areas what it's all about. So now there's a list of what you can actually reserve. I would suggest the next thing would be communications before we put in this full force. So we don't have an issue of one person having to throw out another one or whatever. So now we're at it again. We're analyzing, I see any of the issues we may have, and we're clicking them off. So I'll turn it over to Rec, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
So what is the cost, or is there different costs for different canopies or different parts of the?
Yeah, different areas, different parks, whether it's a shelter, a picnic table, a grill. We're going to be at Cahoon at the Sun Garden, have a wedding or something. There's all different fees. So
you are charging for grills?
It says Melendez Park gazebo. It has barbecue grill and 4 tables. That's what you're getting. So it lists everything. So yeah,
If
table and the grill.
you want to reserve it. Okay, so this is a service, and this is, to me, is a great service for the community. If you're looking to have your reunion out there, your family reunion, and you want to save that date with your family, it's going to be a big one. This gives you the opportunity that now you have reserved it, and it's just you that should be out there, and that you can show anybody that comes up, and that's where the signage comes in to say, if it's not reserved and no one's there, yeah, you can come in and use it all you need to. But if there is someone there and you have reserved it, you can say, look, look at the sign here. I have reserved it. I have this time now.
The problem, first of all, I think it's going to be really impossible to enforce. And you're going to have people that are paying for it and using it, and then you have those that aren't. And so a lot of these people, they pay their taxes already, and I think the parks are covered with that cost. I don't have a problem with reserving it, like you said, if you reserve it, but I have a problem with charging people to reserve the parks. But reserving it makes sense, like you said, if you have it reserved, you can say, hey, you know, that, what do you do then? You call the police? I mean, who do you call if it's a Saturday afternoon and you show up and there's somebody in your spot?
Over the years, I've seen a couple different things happen. I've seen families go out the night before and camp out so that they can reserve it. I've seen fist fights. I've seen people go toe to toe with that. I would assume that, yeah, the call would essentially go to the PD and we'd have to come out there and arbitrate
Yeah.
who actually reserves the space. So I think that was the challenge with that. It depends on the size and the use of that and everything. And I don't know what the level of the fees were back in 18, but I was thinking that they were fairly nominal. $40 a day, so a full day, and then electricity for $15 a period. So if you go out and actually utilize the facility without that there, I believe there's no electricity for those buildings if it's a first come, first serve.
Only a couple with electricity, and that's for the Jolly Jumps and our water Jolly Jumps. There's only a couple sites.
Has the water.
And then there's some charges for inflatable sites. And then the sunken garden, we do the sunken garden. And I would say that I agree with you to a certain point that some of these structures are not worth charging for. But I would say that the sunken garden for even the weddings, because it takes additional manpower in order to maintain it, there might be a better value for that in order to keep putting that money back into it, as long as that's what's happening with those fees.
So if we can come up with a list of things like the sunken garden or the gazebo out in Enchanted Hills or something.
We have
Not
it.
every park, but just.
Right.
We've identified 8.
We've narrowed it down. It
Yeah.
was all over, it was like
everywhere.
this chunk or that chunk, and it's like,
Shared it all?
I don't think we received that.
I don't know, it's more manpower, but if the city can go out there the night before, put a sign that this party has this space, this date and this time. I don't know.
we need to put signs on the areas to begin with.
That's what, yeah, you put signs up here.
And it usually took an alligator clip, and you would put a reserved on there for the time of what it was reserved. That usually helps, at least the fist fights and everything, but yeah, I know. Well, unless it's scheduled.
Yeah, we have those too.
But it's like, it becomes very, very hard. And I think those individuals that are like a reunion or a graduation ceremony and everything, they want that assurance that that space is going to be there for them.
Well, you can even put a stipulation on the amount of people.
Right.
More than 20 people,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Those,
yeah. So,
Can I say something?
sure.
ma'am.
I guess now this paying for a bench and all those, I think we're doing too much with that. Now, the sunken garden part, I really agree. If there's a closed in area, like a sunken garden or maybe a gazebo or something like that, I do, but just benches, 2 benches sent together out in the park for years and years and years, people have just let them camp out there and say they spot if they want to. Now, I do understand like the electricity one. I remember paying $10 or $15 or something when we used it. We need, now that might I understand. I'm okay. I understand charging, if you have to go get a permit to use electricity or whatever, that I'm okay with. But just like the bench and a trash can and the barbecue grill that's out there anyway, I don't agree charging for some and not just because I decided to get there and pop up. Convenience fee, I guess you could call it. I guess what you want to call it, a convenience fee for having the reservation. But I just kind of think it's unfair. I pay $40 as well. I'm free, so I'm kind of like the other counselor, as she stated, I don't think some should pay and some should not, just because I chose to get there and wait. I don't have to pay. So I agree paying for electricity. I'm okay with that. But paying to have a table or paying to use the grill that's out there anyway, I totally, we're doing too much. We're going to nickel and dime the community to death. I can understand renting the canopies and all those things, paying for those things. I totally agree. Those numbers are still too high if we ever going to go back to that. But for renting those type of things, I understand. But just using a free park, now y'all want to charge me for me and my family to sit at this table and eat at the free park. And so y'all killing me to death over here. All right, I'm off my soapbox about that. Thank you.
Can you send this to me electronically? Because I didn't receive it.
Councilor Beck.
Work product, we just, yeah.
It's working,
We'll need it for the record.
it's work in
Okay,
progress, but enforcement's the hard part.
I understand not charging for some of these areas, and I don't have any problem with it. I don't have a problem with them calling in with their name and their address and their phone number, because being that I live by a park and they come, they hang out, the garbage that is left that is not in a trash can receptacle, that's not put away correctly. We have our men that go by that take the trash up every day, they pick them up. But because our society is the way it is, they just go out and they just trash the area. And I think that we need to be reimbursed for that.
I think the problem with that is proving who left the trash. That's going to be impossible to enforce that. I know what you're saying because I see it all the time, but I think that's going to be impossible to enforce.
If they are using that area, they leave their name and number because they've gotten a permit. Doesn't have to be a charge for the permit, maybe $3 for the paper and whatever it takes, or do it online. As long as you have a name that you can go to.
Let's say they left at 5 and someone came at 6 and then trashed it, and then you're going to go after them and they didn't do it. That's where it's impossible to.
Well, you got to figure something out because we're using our man resources. And I understand we pay taxes and everything, but our resources are thin.
And we've been using those same resources.
Just
More, let me let Mike.
John. Just my experience from a whole other park district in other towns that I've worked in, they've done something very similar. You might have to have a staff member in a truck going around and setting up those signs, going through and making sure that they can mediate if someone's there. And then they can also check the trash, pull the trash at the end of the day to make sure that party who reserved it and paid for it has cleaned up, don't lose their deposits. And then you know it just happened because of other people.
And then what happens, like I've seen at the zoo, when they have big parties, the trash just gets full and then it ends up blowing everywhere. And who's responsible for that? You gonna charge the person or, you know?
Our goal is after a party like that.
Yeah, I'm like in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councilor Moore,
Yes.
you have something to say?
forgot. No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I believe one other piece I would like to add, because again, the people's taxes have paid for all of that, but when a shelter is reserved, it's taken away from all of the other public and given to just that entity. So when you think about that, yes, their taxes help pay for that structure, but you've taken it away that nobody else can utilize that facility because it's now reserved and everything. And I think that's where I was just looking up, Artesia has rates of cost for park rentals and all of that as well too. So it's not unheard of that we're doing it this way. But I know that one of the things is that, you know, I would like to have the use of that if I'm paying my taxes for that when I want to use it. And then, but if it's not available to me because it's been blocked out, that's where the challenge kind of comes, I think, a little bit.
You know, and I think one of the, at least in my experience, Easter Sunday would be one of those times that to me worked great because it's first come, first served. And if you got people went and reserved every single canopy and barbecue pit and what have you, the ones that get there without reservation are just out of luck. And I think it makes it so difficult for people that, I don't know.
And Mr. Chair, I think we have the ability to cancel out those dates and say these dates, nothing can be reserved because it is for the general public at that time. I think the other thing that happens with the reservations is that sometimes it'll push them to a park that they forgot we even have. And we have every one of our parks is a nice park in everybody's neighborhood. So the idea is to kind of move them around and let them utilize every one of our parks, because the more they use our parks, the more they love them and the safer they are from all the other crazy vandalism and stuff too. So.
You may not run into this, but you may, because you don't know, people are just not nice. Put some kind of verbiage in there that stipulates, like the garage sales, you can't have it more than 2 weekends in a row or something.
Yeah, no consecutive.
Yeah.
Because that would limit the consecutive. Okay.
The hard part is we can't give refunds. So if you give me a deposit, the way finance is set up, we don't do refunds. So that's difficult. I do have one parks guy that Saturday and Sunday picks up the trash every morning. And, but we have.
That's a lot of parks.
Right, it is, but we got 5 crews on Monday. So it's give or take.
But if we know it's coming, then he can focus on those ones that he knows, so.
Did narrow it down.
Are we through with this one? We can go to the other one and they're already getting late. The Spring River Sioux Pond discussion and update.
You want to drive or do you want me to?
Yeah.
Cheers.
I'm glad Jim's here. Someone to help a little bit with the history. I asked Andy to come, but she had to break away. But for me, I've only been here for a year, so I kind of wanted some of that history. So I've actually asked Andy and kind of talked a little bit about the background of the pond. It's traditional been a fishing area. The space is about 500 by 30, and the pond's depth is about 6 to 8 feet.
Yeah, deeper now, but
yeah. So prior to the renovation, the city was in cooperative effort with Game and Fish that provided a youth-only fishing pond at this. And what they would do is do multiple stockings throughout the year. From what John Denning told me is trout in the wintertime and warm fish, so bass, catfish in the summertime. But because it was designated for youth, we've also saw adults fishing there. From what Sean said is the adult can cast out for the kid, let the kid reel it in. That's all perfectly legal. But several times the staff themselves historically have had to go there and monitor proper youth fishing as opposed to adult fishing. So that was some of the challenges, and it forces our staff to then once again enforce the state laws. Prior to the renovation, it was lined with mature trees, the embankments were more accessible to the anglers. There were retaining walls to address any steep bank erosion, and a dock and an aeration fountain. The pond is actually drained into the natural water table. So water replacement and irrigation for that area was traditionally done with a well and pump located in the middle of our southern perimeter fence. Renovation started February, March of 2020.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was determined to utilize the parks and county staff to work on the project. I really haven't been able to obtain any formalized plans for that determination of what the budget was, expectations and objectives placed on this project prior to taking the responsibility in November. Since then, I was just trying to learn a little bit more about it. But the renovation involved the removal of the mature trees, the draining of the muck, and relocation of the waterfowl to the bird sanctuary.
For a while. Now, Game and Fish, we've moved 50 or 60 out of there.
Okay.
They went.
Yeah, there's a few out there, so I don't know. But the dock and the fountain, aeration fountain was removed, but a new irrigation system was put in. We also added younger trees, relocated the rainbow trout to make a fountain effect for the pond. Used fill dirt to level it out, embankments reworked, underwater aerators, which actually provide better aeration for the whole system. And the water supply for the irrigation pond was hooked up to the city water line, and the pump no longer is functional, I guess, since prior to renovation.
Which, when you talking about the well?
The well, yeah.
Well died. No, the well died, the actual well itself. The city water works okay.
Yeah, and the pump doesn't work either now. So the present condition is this is what it looked like a week and a half ago. So changes that altered our opening plan since the start of the renovation, we now charge our patrons. And because of this fee, for any patron, mainly New Mexican patrons, it's not deemed accessible to the public, and the Game and Fish will no longer supply fish. In order to allow fishing, if you want to continue that avenue, is we can apply for a Class A designation pond, but we supply our own fish. So up like Ruidoso, they have their own fishing pond. People go up there and fish trout and the whole bit. So that is a possibility for us. The well was not functioning prior to renovation, and use of the city water, or we could redo the well. I just got a quote yesterday afternoon. It's about $165,000 to do the whole line and the whole pump. And I got that from Keys. It may be cheaper if we shop around, but that's what I got from Keys.
Jeez.
So, and also just a reminder, the pond was not part of the 2018 master plan. So there really wasn't a big guideline of how we progress. Is that a zoo exhibit? We can do waterfowl, we can do other things, or is it still kind of going to be utilized for a fishing pond? So that was never really considered in that.
Why was that not included in the master plan?
There was sections of that property that was decided by council not to have part of the master plan, to leave it the way it was.
The pond and the park were left out of that. The area to the east where the Christmas Railway was always added in, where the tracks kind of go. And so the pond was out and the Spring River Park was out.
The playground area and everything east of that. So one of the things I looked at is the price of, if we were to get fish, we can only import fish from sanctioned hatcheries that is approved by Game and Fish. So I just pulled up a couple, and to let you know is you can get a largemouth bass, 3 to 4 inches from Utah, and that's $12. And that's just because Utah's drier and they need more water and a whole bit. But if I go a little bit east to Texas and Arkansas, now we're starting to look at $1.20, $1.50 per each, and then I still have to ship them in.
It's all, if you get fish, you just catch and release.
That would be my goal. So I'll give you a variety of options, and I just want to hear everyone's input so I know which way to move forward on that. One of the things I'd like to add to that for safety and for maintenance is a John boat, a trolling motor. We can potentially add more decorative fountains there, but that's not 100% needed. I'm starting to see a little bit of algae, so I don't know our aeration and whatnot. Also, if we want to get grass growing a little bit sooner, we can sod or give the Bermuda grass time to grow. So I know the Bermuda's been put out, it's just had issues. And then also, let's not forget our life-saving things that we would need to put around the pond as well. So in case people fell in and whatnot, they'd be able to help each other out. Then we just look at what's available for the convenience of our anglers. So restrooms are a big deal, especially over there. If I have trees and no bathroom, what's our patrons going to need to do? Drinking fountains, there is one over there. I don't know if it's functional at this moment, but there is one right there. And shelters, if you're going to be fishing for several hours, the trees aren't mature, there's not a lot of shade there. And trash receptacles as well as fishing line, that was a big deal that was also explained to me. And that's one of the other reasons why where we choose fishing. We also have to be careful if I put birds or our wild Canadians that come in, fishing line can get torn up with them. So that's kind of what people bringing home fishing equipment, seating. So picnic tables, benches, and then also we had a fishing dock. So there was nothing included with the new fishing dock. Kind of how I see it being laid out is a potential. We also may relocate a building down the road that can be a party rental area. That would be in that center peninsula, but more so is the yellow will be our kind of our shelters, water fountains, trash receptacles, fountain, and the dock. So that's just kind of how I see it, just being laid out there to let me know that if someone comes fishing, they're not that far from the bathrooms, they're not that far from any shelter or any other convenience there as well, and make sure that we have plenty of trash can receptacles. So decisions to be made, questions asked. Do we still want to have free fishing option in the community? Does it have to be at the zoo? Cielo Grande, Enchanted Lands. I know the bird sanctuary actually last week looked at that one. The lower southern pond there actually does have catfish, does have bass, does have bluegill, but they're not a significant size. It's probably maybe half of what we have.
Where'd those fish
I don't know anybody.
Right.
But yeah, there's some fairly good size fish in there.
Yeah, I saw some bass that maybe you can catch with a jig, but that was, like I said, that was just my observation.
Right.
So if there was a criteria, but once again, fishing line and the birds in the bird sanctuary, but then that would be a free access, and then the fishing game could stock those ponds as well, or maybe potentially look at another pond somewhere else within the fishing, golfing community, all those ponds over there. Do we want to charge extra for fishing? Do we want to use a catch and release with a no fee system? That would just be regular admission into the zoo. What amenities would you like to supply? And then our water issues. And then once again, just reminding people that it's not part of the master plan. And then last of all, when to open. So I believe those are all kind of questions that have come across my table. And so I just want to have those discussions. So I really sat down and looked at that. The quickest timeline is basically within 1 month, I could kind of work a few things, but ideally I would need to get sod down, file a permit, and secure a vendor for my fish source. So that's kind of where a lot of that $35,000 is allocated if we want to open really, really quick and getting sod down. Our irrigation system is now up and running. We did have some problems with our pump getting frozen and whatnot. So once again, here I was thinking the water utility line. Right now I'm at $25,000 for the budget for that particular line item. We budgeted about $2,000. So supplying water from the water line is going to be significant because I've only been doing it since November. So realizing that if I'm using city water, that's going to greatly demand that. So that's now where in 3 years, that well now starts to pay for itself. And I don't know what water rights cost and that whole bit, but yeah. So number one is the overall cheapest operational cost is really partnering with Game and Fish and saying they can supply it. That being said, I would have to rework that fence line to make sure that now that southern parking lot is used and it could just be free access to the public in that regards. Given what I'm spending money for the perimeter fence, I'm estimating about $55,000 of materials and installation in that regards. And then obviously, once again, planting grass or giving time for the seed to grow and whatnot. So, but still no amenities, no nothing. It's just letting things kind of be the way it is. But that will get us in about 6 months. It also give me time to stock the pond, let the fish grow. But most of the fish that I've shown can take several years to grow. So even if I got and put fish in there now that I buy, short of me spending $12 to $15 per fish to make it catchable, we're still going to need years for those fish to grow. And then what I figured is kind of my best option is really starting to look at all those amenities that we talked about. And so I'm really glad that we talked about with the shelters and being about 50-some thousand dollars. The only difference is I added a restroom. So it's all about the same ballpark of restrooms and whatnot for the safety equipment, the aeration, restrooms, fishing dock, all the shelters and whatnot was about 60,000. The challenge just comes down to us is spending how often do I need to do fish replacement if it's a catch and release, not catch and release, a catch and go. We can partner with the Optimist Club. They've sponsored fishing days before too, and hopefully help out with that one and whatnot. So all the details are really in your packet, but it's just kind of, I need to know the direction you want this pond to be, because in the end, I'm a fisherman too, and I enjoy those family experiences. My suggestion is if we make it a Class A, you don't need a license. You can go with your kids. And then we just kind of regulate our pond and either add some more fish once in a while and whatnot. But the idea that the fish can grow and be that legendary fish that you catch is also a good thing. So I can go any one of those three ways. I just need to kind of get an idea of what the community is looking for and your guys' input.
Is the zoo right now fenced off as part of the pond as part of the zoo?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to see a fourth way. I'd like to see your second option with your fence off where there's it's free. It still has all the other amenities.
Then that's something we can look at too. But you're realizing you're now spending about $55,000 for the extra fencing, and then the other $230-some thousand for all those amenities to happen. Maybe we take off the $100 for the Class A permit, but all those amenities are already.
I'd like to keep it free because historically that's what it's been. And then the fish will be free too.
Yeah, no, and that's, like I said, is I can go on any of these routes because I get the fact that this is probably the best prime location for a free fishing option for the community. But that's why I also posed other potential areas that we could do that.
COVID money for any of that, or?
I'll get to you, Councilor Moore, in just a minute.
Yes, the American Rescue Plan funding has been allowed to be converted into lost revenue, and that allows us to use one more thing. So that 1.7 million, that way we were not able to move into lost revenue, was what we utilized for the utility billing and everything. So there is the ability for those funds to come out of the American Rescue Plan money. for this purpose. It's not a bad purpose for it because it's a tourism-related type
Or
industry.
even if John can find out from the Legislative Finance Committee if there's any, because they keep saying there's all this money up there.
I mean, and there's always that ability for the legislative dollars. I think the challenge we did have with the pond though was that there were some parents that would utilize the kids so that they could fish the pond out. And so if it becomes free, we need to make sure that we structure the.
When I say strictly catch and release too.
Yeah.
No,
You can't.
no, the Fish and Game are supplying the fish. It has to be their criteria. So they're restocking the fish.
Yeah.
So, but
nothing ever gets big enough and there were some that fished it out.
And then we have to go by.
I know we took a bunch of stuff out of that pond that was.
All of, Councilor Moore.
Yep.
Councilor Moore.
I'm kind of like, I don't know why I can't remember her name. I'm kind of like you. I still want it to be free. I know y'all gonna fuss about the fence, but I love the idea. I remember I going there with my grandma as a little girl with the fish, and yeah, she threw the line in and she touched my hand as she pulled it out, but I was pulling it out. She let me think I was pulling it out. So I think that's a little thing to, disagree about, that the mom is there, but the parents are there to fish. So I don't mind, number one, with some of the amenities, as long as it's free. He keeps saying something about that fence, but I don't know. You're talking about removing the fence that I guess I disagree with them putting in to begin with. That's why I guess I don't care, because I didn't want them to put that fence anywhere and separate the pond anyway. So I don't care if y'all remove that fence for one. I want it to be free, just like you said, for two, but there's nothing wrong with being free and adding some of those amenities. I love the idea about the bathroom. I had never even thought about that, sir. I love the idea about having a bathroom.
You can thank Rita for that one.
Okay.
I never even thought about that, but that's a great idea, and if we're going to keep charging for the other part of the zoo, I think let's leave that be free, move that fence, and if y'all going to keep charging for the zoo, leave that part free. Maybe the people that go over there and use that part wouldn't mind going around and go to the zoo and paying for the other part. But I think if we could leave that fishing free, let them restock it and stock it, let it grow. I think the community may be a little more fearful, about that. And I really like that idea of having a little shelter over there and leaving them free and letting them stock it. And we don't pay no $2 for no fish, $12 for no fish for somebody to fish out and throw back in there. Nobody has time for that. I know that. What's fun about fishing and putting it back in there? That don't sound fun at all. You got to take it home and fry it up in the pan. So.
And there's the word.
I like to.
Snort out of there.
Finish. I guess so. Yeah.
That cheered me up a little, I was saying. Anyhow, to your point with game and fish, not all their fisheries are open now. So you get trout, catfish, basically, whatever. So if you want different species, we're going to have to go a little broader out, different states anyhow. So just part of your decision-making process, whether.
All the state hatcheries right now, from what I gathered, were just trout.
Yeah. So it's, in the old days, it was a little different. That's changed.
Well, the problem that I have is not so much with the zoo itself, the pond itself. I have a problem with the design of the zoo the way it is right now. Because the design of the zoo includes a carousel, includes a train, includes a pond. And if I'm not mistaken, it includes a swing set, a baby swing set that you have to pay to enter the zoo in order to use those pieces of equipment. And so I don't know whether we would be able to request some kind of cost to redesign and bring the fence in more like it used to be, to give the carousel and the train and that portion of the zoo back to the park, to become back part of the park. I kind of drove through there the other day and because I talked to an individual and they told me that they had gone to the zoo and they hadn't gone to the zoo in quite a while. And so they went, they didn't see the ponies. They didn't see the pygmy goats that used to be there.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the ponies are back along the river, right next to Longhorn, so I don't know why they didn't see them.
Okay, I don't know.
Right.
That's what I was told. That they didn't see the ponies and those two are the main ones that they talked about, the pygmy goats, the little tiny.
Yeah, the pygmy goats used to be where the little shack is right now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we did get rid of our goats because they were also in with the llamas, and if you, shoot here, goats and llamas tend to spread their feces and disease back and forth. You can never clear worms out of one or the other if they're housed together. So
But you say you got rid of them, did you give them to another zoo or?
Put them up for dinner.
We don't do that one. There's, what we do is we surplus them out to potentially a home, another farmer, if you will, the same thing we did with our Longhorn when he had his hoof issues and whatnot. So we just follow that.
We would have to check exactly where they were. They actually left before John came on board as well too. So John wasn't here when the pygmy goats were actually moved out.
Because my understanding is, again, going back to the, what's that, anti-donation clause thing, that you would have to run into that kind of problem if you gave them away, right?
And some of the exceptions are if they go to another institution, equal institution or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
like another zoo.
yeah, another zoo, we can do work with our governmental cousins like the school, we can do those kind of works with them as well too. But yeah, these animals, I think they didn't go out to any private individuals. They went out to appropriate people. I'm just not sure where they went because I know it happened before you got here.
Right. That's one of the things we also have to look at and address is kind of our animal acquisition disposition policy, is to understand also with the donational issues, but we also are required by animal welfare, USDA, to make sure that those animals go to a good home. To give you a prime example, our wolf is only 10% wolf. It's a real dog. And so we're working on actually having an animal collection and a plan where we think about what's going in, how it's being taken care of. Do we have the right staff? Do we have the right management facilities for those animals? And then what do we do in particular cases like for our elk? And we've sent our elk up to Clovis, the offspring for that. So we have to say where our animal's going to go if they do go and the whole bit. So
But those animals, like the goats, they're not up for sale or for auction or anything. Like they have to go to a specific, unless they.
What is the value of an elephant? What is the value of a giraffe? What is the value of a goat? So when we start to put value on the animal, then our critics will sit there and say, oh, you're just breeding them to make money. You're not always concerned about the welfare. So it's one of those weird things where we have to kind of see what other institutions in a similar governing authority does. And it's just trying to work through that program. And so when we develop an actual acquisition disposition policy, that's part of our collection plan. And we would submit that for approval so that we don't necessarily see the animals as quote unquote a dollar value asset. Because I have had some people in my governing authority go, well, we're short on our money. Let's just breed some more animals and sell them. The issue comes down to you can get a giraffe for $60,000 or $150,000. It all depends on the demand and the time of the year.
But regardless, I mean, if you give an animal away, somebody's going to put a value to it to determine whether it's an anti-donation or meets the anti-donation clause or not.
Yeah, if we would have the ability, I think we could put an RFP out and say, we're getting rid of the goats, please give us your price. Make it a competitive process. I think that would work through that. We can't just give them away or say that this one's $20, this one's $50 or anything. I believe we get in trouble with that. And that's where you fall back to those other requirements for the movement of these processes, because we've had animals donated to us. We've actually had animals bought for us and then given to us.
And we've had 15 peafowl just dumped on our door this weekend.
And then sometimes they just show up. Yeah. So, but you're right. You're correct.
Did you have another issue with the zoo?
Yeah. Sean Alvarado, I don't think he's here. He was gonna, oh, you are, right there. Yeah, so he emailed me about the greenhouse. You want to tell him about, I got the pictures. And
My name's Sean Alvarado, I live at 310 Broken Arrow Road. And I'm with Woodman Life for Journal Chapter number 6 here in Roswell. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Woodman Life, but they're a life insurance across the nation that are also a fraternal order. So they have fraternal chapters across the nation, via state, city, whatnot. I was approached by a few people who had been to the zoo and had mentioned the fact that the employees that were collecting admission and also the gift shops were out in the elements. And it had been brought to our club's attention with some of our club members as well. Why don't we just donate some kind of shelter to them until they can get their permanent structure? So we took it upon ourselves to donate a greenhouse. I believe it was an 8x10 or 10x12 greenhouse to the zoo. The greenhouse was erected, and part of the problem I have is that the care of the greenhouse was not taken to the point that I think it should be, as to where the wind almost blew it over. And I actually went out and staked down the greenhouse when I got a call from one of the people at the zoo. And we actually, I staked it down to the point of it not getting up and blowing away. And part of the problem I had with it is that I was assured by Mr. Right here that they would level an area and put it down and whatnot. And I had also asked to be contacted if they wanted help erecting it, which I kind of have a feeling that I probably wasn't notified because it might have been kind of a liability situation there. When I heard it was falling apart, I was like, I need to get over there and do what I can to kind of save a little bit of it. So my question is, I know most of you all are aware that donations are greatly appreciated in the area. And my civic group, the problem I have is that if things being donated aren't being taken care of, the word gets around to other groups, which then come back and says, why would I donate to the city if they're not going to take care of what I'm donating? So that's part of the problem that I have, is that, the city's hurting. And just like we brought, the mentioned today by this engineer about the new park and that type of stuff, getting people to donate stuff. If you're not going to take care of it, you're not going to get people to donate stuff. And those of you that are from Roswell know word of mouth goes a long ways. So it can hurt or break you. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring to y'all's attention, is that if you want to get donations, if you want the city and people to be involved from civic groups, take care of what they give you.
Can I ask you to give us your name and address, please, for the record?
And it's 310 Broken Arrow Road.
Okay, thank you.
And I printed these pictures for everyone. You can see the damage that's been done and hasn't been corrected. And it's not on the pad. Right? Yeah. It's being used, right? Because there's.
Yeah, but also now in the summertime, that's now too hot for our staff.
Yeah.
So I had actually talked to him about the potential relocating it back to our regular greenhouses and utilizing it there and then trying to contact you. But to be quite honest, it's not about a liability. I still would have had you there overseeing. I didn't have your contact number because we were dealing mainly with that employee and your connection with that employee.
Yeah. Well, the employee
I asked her, I was like, can you reach out to him? Can I get the contact information? I never got it.
The thing is, we're also in the phone book, so we could have been contacted by representative. So.
Any comments, questions?
Yes.
Oh, we just can't talk about personal stuff in a public meeting.
Oh, okay. So you're looking for a resolution?
I just wanted to know what the just let y'all know what was going on.
Okay.
And, to consider that when you get something from organizations.
Yeah.
John, do we have his number now as well too?
I will get it before the end of the meeting. Yep.
And then we'll be noted, we'll continue this conversation after.
I'm going to put it as public comment because it wasn't on. the
Thank you for
agenda.
coming. Letting us know. We appreciate the
Thank you.
donations. Yeah.
You know, one last question that I have concerning the, not actually the zoo. It's the park itself. I know there's a lot of kids out there. I don't know if they belong to the city or they belong to the railway.
Sheds on that property, I think still belong to the railway. And there is a.
You're referring to the back half property.
Yeah, there's like, I don't know.
There's one shed that we store hay in, and that's over by the elk. The red ones you're referring to are the train.
There is a fee associated with them. However, my understanding is that they are supposed to be moved off the property. And I know John's been working with the railway in order to get them moved. So they are not the cities that
Those are
at this.
Those are the only remaining structures. He's even pulled the pipes out of the ground.
There is the ability to make them the cities.
Well,
Yes.
you know, again, the perception in the community. If you're going to provide storage for one individual or one business, then you should be able to provide it for anybody else that has.
He is paying for that service within the lease agreement.
I thought we didn't have a lease agreement with him anymore.
There's one more year on that lease agreement.
For the railway?
Yep. There's one more year, I believe, John, is that correct or not? I believe we have one more year that the railway could operate. The conversation has been is that we believe that I'll leave it off there, but we don't know if that last year will be utilized.
My understanding that this would be the last year if we renewed it, because we renewed, it now goes to a year-to-year deal, and that was signed in November for another year.
We'll double check, Counselor, and make sure that we're all in word. It was my understanding that we had still one more season of the railway on this contract. I thought that was the last one after that.
Sure, we still have one more item on your agenda to discuss.
Okay. Which is the date.
Yes, sir.
And I'm fine with Wednesdays at 4:30. I don't know if that's, Councilor Moore,
Yes.
what is your opinion on keeping the meetings at 4:30 on Wednesdays?
I don't mind Wednesday. I do go to church, so I missed church tonight because I go to church at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. So I missed church this Wednesday of the month, but so usually I don't know. I just this rough meeting, having a meeting every day this week has really been rough for me. So how are we gonna do it?
Would 4 o'clock work better for you?
I don't get off of work until 4 o'clock.
Okay, so that probably won't work.
Yeah, so I'm not able to leave most days till 4 o'clock.
Okay, so is it okay with you if we just leave it at 4:30 Wednesdays?
Yes, it's okay. I've come to, to deal with it.
All right. Any further business?
You have everybody's report in your
In your
packet.
packet, yes, and then public participation.
So
Anybody online have anything to discuss or share?
This is Vicki Burris. I just wanted to point out to John one slight thing he said. You cannot fish in the bird sanctuary.
That's what the signs say.
Right, but you had said they could go there and fish and they got great big fish. You'll destroy the liner that the Smith family put in. So that's why you cannot fish there. Just wanted to point that out. That there's a reason why you can't fish there.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? If not, and if there's no objections, this meeting is adjourned at 7:33. God almighty.